We've all heard that quiet voice inside that tells us we're right, that our reasons are good, and that breaking the rules this time won't make a difference. It makes us weak sometimes, and strong other times. Dostoevsky knew more than most people about this inner battle. He went to jail, was sent away, and felt hopeless. After all that, he wrote stories about his life that still show us the dark sides of people's hearts. These aren't just old Russian stories. In them, we can see our pride, our fears, our needs for love, and our search for meaning. The characters in Dostoevsky trip, fall, and get back up. They also struggle with everyday questions like, why do we hurt ourselves? Can going through pain make us stronger? Is it really possible to forgive? This is why we're going to look at 25 life lessons from Dostoevsky. There is a truth in every chapter that can wake us up, make us question our safety, and maybe even change the way we live. Before we start, take a moment to remember the last time you ignored your feelings on the spur of the moment. Did it make you feel free or antsy? Write your story in the comments. For Dostoevsky's lessons are not just about the people he wrote about. They are also about us. Lesson 1. Freedom is terrifying and sacred. When most of us think of freedom, we picture something light, exciting, and almost effortless, being able to live our lives as we please and do what we please. But in Fyodor Dostoevsky's world, freedom is not just a nice thing to have, and it is both a gift and a load, a blessing and a trial. Dostoevsky thought that freedom was holy because it gave us the chance to choose love, truth, and goodness. But he also thought it was scary because it meant taking responsibility for every choice. Dostoevsky asks over and over again in his books, what will you do with your freedom? He says that the answer determines whether you rise to honor or fall into despair. Dostoevsky says that freedom is more than just being able to act without anyone getting in the way. Knowing that the choices you make matter gives you a sense of personal responsibility. Knowing that no one else can make your final choice for you is what it means to be free. This makes me feel free, but it also makes me feel very uneasy. It makes me think of Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment. He tells himself that killing someone for a greater good gives him the freedom and maybe even the right to do so. He finds out how heavy that freedom really is when he uses it. His inner judge, or conscience, won't let him rest. He can't get away from the consequences of what he did, and his liberty turns into torture. In this piece, Dostoevsky shows us that freedom without duty is not freedom at all, but pride and fantasy-bound freedom. Most of the people in Dostoevsky's stories try to get away from freedom because it's heavy. It's what they're looking for. Systems, ideas, or powers that can make decisions for them. This is made very clear in the brothers Karamazov's The Grand Inquisitor story. When Christ comes back to Earth, the Inquisitor catches him. He tells Christ that people don't want real freedom because it hurts too much and requires too much. People would rather have bread, safety, and rules to follow than have to make bad decisions on their own. Dostoevsky shows here a temptation that everyone faces, the urge to give up freedom for comfort. If someone else makes the choice for us, like the government, an idea, or even a great leader, we don't have to take responsibility. Dostoevsky, on the other hand, says that giving up is a denial of our humanity. Losing respect, honesty, and finally love is what it costs to stay away from freedom. Why does Dostoevsky say that freedom is holy? Because it's the only place where real love can grow. Love that is forced, pushed, or controlled is not love at all. A heart that is free can only give itself. That's why freedom is so valuable. It lets people reach their fullest potential. Again, think about Sonia from Crime and Punishment. She freely decides to stick by Raskolnikov even after his crime comes to light. She doesn't have to do it out of fear or social duty. Her love is busy and planned. The freedom to forgive and stay true gives Raskolnikov the strength to admit his mistake and start the process of being forgiven. Here, love and freedom go hand in hand. Without freedom, Sonia's allegiance wouldn't mean anything. The fact that it is free makes it redeeming. It's easy to see the scary side of freedom. You can always make the wrong choice. Dostoevsky never hides the fact that bad things happen. People hurt others, hurt themselves, and betray what is good when they abuse their rights. He won't try to hide the truth, but the religious side is just as clear. It is possible to make the right choice, and that is what gives life its worth. People can turn around, choose to forgive, and choose to love even in the worst times and after the worst crimes. This potential is holy because it recognizes how valuable people are. Dostoevsky hopes that as long as there is freedom, no person is beyond redemption. Notes from Underground gives us another powerful example. The underground man is adamant about his strange freedom. He doesn't believe in logical models that can predict how people will act. He is proudly adamant that he will do something irrational, even harmful, just to show that he is not a machine. He says that even if logic tells him that 2 + 2 makes 4, he will still insist on making it 5, even though it is silly, because that shows how independent he is. Dostoevsky shows the paradox of freedom by saying that people will hurt themselves to show that they are free. Utopian and logical plans don't work because they forget that freedom includes the ability to act irrationally, fight, and refuse. It's not possible to neatly manage freedom. It's dangerous, unexpected, and a mess. But that's what makes us human. Dostoevsky thought that being mature wasn't about having freedom, but about being responsible for it. Being free means being responsible. Freedom turns into self-indulgence when there is no duty. It turns into a place of growth, love, and moral courage when you take responsibility for it. When the people in his books don't take responsibility, they become hopeless. When they accept it, even if it costs them a lot, they find peace they didn't expect. This is the main reason why confession, sorrow, and forgiveness are so important in his stories. They are free acts of responsibility. To confess means I'm not going to hide anymore. I freely admit that what I did was wrong. It hurts to make that choice, but it frees me. In the end, Dostoevsky says that freedom is holy because it goes hand in hand with human honor. If you force someone to give up their rights or treat them like a machine part, you are treating them less than fully human. On the other hand, respecting someone's freedom, even if they don't agree with us, is the same thing as recognizing their worth as a divine image. This is why the Inquisitor is shown to be very bad. Even though he claims to have compassionate intentions, he wants to take away the pain of being free from people. They lose everything that makes them human when he does that, though. There is more danger in being free, says Dostoevsky, than in being a slave. So what do we learn from this? Dostoevsky's idea of freedom makes us want to be brave in our daily lives. It means turning down the false comforts of words or systems that say they can do what we want. It means not blaming other people or our situations for our moral flaws. It means recognizing the holy value of our own freedom and the freedom of everyone else we meet. Yes, being free is scary. It lets us fail, feel bad about ourselves, and feel guilty. On the other hand, it lets love, forgiveness, healing, and real happiness in. To be free means to be a full person. Dostoevsky says that's worth all the danger. In this way, freedom is both scary and holy. We are scared of it because it wants everything from us. Sacred because it gives us everything: respect, duty, and the chance to love without being forced. We can't get away from the weight of this truth in Dostoevsky's writing. He says that being human means being free, and being free means always having the choice at the fork in the road of life. And those choices, what they cost and what they gained, write our true story. Lesson 2. Conscience is a voice you can't outrun. In Dostoevsky's world, conscience is one of the most mysterious and necessary forces in life. It's still there, even if we bury it, ignore it, or try to drown it out. It's like an inner witness that won't let us forget the truth about ourselves. Sometimes it's quiet, and other times it's loud. Dostoevsky thought that consciousness wasn't just something made up by culture or social conditioning. It's something deeper, the voice of truth inside us that can't be shut down, no matter how badly we want it to be. The people in Dostoevsky are great at making sense of things. They come up with complicated ideas to explain or defend what they want. Someone great like this is Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. He tells himself that some people are extraordinary and can break moral rules for the greater good because of this. He thinks that killing a crooked pawn shop owner is actually helping people, but once the crime is done, his ideas fall apart. It doesn't matter how reasonable his defense was, his conscience still accuses him. He can't get away from the weight of what he has done. He is restless and feverish. Dostoevsky shows that the mind can make very good cases, but the conscience speaks in a different language that can't be changed by intelligence. Justifications may make you feel better for a little while, but they can't stop the voice inside your head that says, "You knew better." It doesn't go away when you ignore your feelings. It gets worse. When characters don't want to admit, they become paranoid, afraid, and alone. At first, Raskolnikov stays away from Sonia because he is afraid she will see through him. He gets angry at other people and sees suspicion where there is none. Because of his guilt, he can't have normal interactions. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dmitry Karamazov's intense guilt, even though he is not the murderer, also shows how someone's conscience can nag at them when they feel like they were involved in wrongdoing. Even taking part in evil in a roundabout way leaves its mark. Dostoevsky says that the weight of guilt can't be held back. It seeps into a person's thoughts, feelings, and even health. This is why his books are full of statements that come as a shock and are often very dramatic. There comes a time when the weight of guilt is too much to bear, and the only way out is to tell the truth. When you confess, you finally bring your outside life in line with the voice that has been speaking the whole time. Dostoevsky doesn't just want to show how painful conscience can be. He believes that it is the only way that people can be saved. Raskolnikov doesn't suddenly forget what he did when he finally opens up about it, but confessing changes him. It helps him reconnect with the truth, with other people, and with the chance of love. His trip to Siberia isn't just a punishment. It's also a spiritual rebirth that lets him finally hear the voice he had been trying to shut down. In this way, morality is not only something that hurts you, it also helps you. Yes, it shows crime, but only to bring the person back to life. It wants the truth not to hurt us, but to set us free from the chains of lies. Dostoevsky thought that ignoring your feelings would kill you in the end. Following it, even if it hurts, is the key to real healing. A lot of the time, modern thought tries to explain morality in terms of outside forces, like culture, social pressure, or upbringing. Dostoevsky doesn't agree with this summary. He doesn't say that society doesn't change how we think about what is right and wrong, but he's getting at something deeper, something general, that can't be shrugged off. Think about Ivan Karamazov. He has a lot of knowledge, is suspicious, and doesn't believe in religion. But when he sees pain, especially the pain of innocent children, he is furious. This isn't because it's the right thing to do, but because something inside him tells him that this kind of evil can't be okay. He may have strong reasons against God, but his conscience tells him he can't live in a world where innocent people's pain is just explained away. Thoughts and feelings are different. As this shows, it's not just a mood or a traditional thing to do. It's an inner drive for truth and goodness that needs to be heard, even if it's not handy. Dostoevsky is also very aware of how we lie to ourselves to hide our guilt. The characters pass the time with fun, ideology, or cynicism. For example, the underground man makes fun of morals and virtue and acts like conscience is not real. He is sarcastic, but his anger hides a deeper sense of unease. The fact that he is so angry at morals shows that he can't quite shut it up. In this way, Dostoevsky predicted a problem we face today. The more we deny our conscience, the more clear it is that we don't have it. Self-deception never really works because the inner voice always comes back, sometimes in strange ways, like through dreams, guilt, or sudden awareness of someone else's pain. One of the most interesting ideas in Dostoevsky is how relationships with other people can awaken our awareness. If left alone, we can think of reasons for everything, but reasons don't work when you're with another person. Raskolnikov's lies about himself are exposed by Sonia's kindness. Elder Zosima's presence makes Alyosha feel responsible. Even a child's look can show sorrow that isn't there. It's not just about one person, Dostoevsky says. Consciousness is also about relationships. When seen through someone else's eyes, it becomes brighter and clearer. The outward confirmation of the internal witness comes from the community. That's why confessions are often made in front of other people in his books, and not just whispered to yourself. The truth is real when it's talked about. Dostoevsky shows that ignoring one's feelings over and over again leads to slavery, not freedom. People who kill their morality lose who they are. They become cold, mechanical, and distant. In Crime and Punishment, Sigurd Krylov slowly turns to nihilism after a lifetime of stifling his conscience. His suicide shows how hopeless he is and how he no longer knows how to live honestly. Dostoevsky thought that the biggest danger was not that having a conscience makes us feel bad, but that putting it down makes us less human. Living without a conscience means being cut off from truth, love, and the chance to be saved. It means to turn into a ghost of yourself. The last thing Dostoevsky says is a hint that awareness is spiritual as well as mental. It is God's voice in our hearts that reminds us of the law that goes beyond the law. It's something that even his most doubtful figures can't fully get away from. They can say no to dogma, but they can't stop the conscience from calling. The spark of spirituality is what keeps people looking for things that are bigger than themselves. This is why Dostoevsky respects morality so much. It doesn't get in the way of freedom. It protects it. It's not a jail, but a guide. It may blame, but it also brings us back to life. What can we learn about morality from the way Dostoevsky writes about it? That avoiding it makes our pain worse. That reasoning can't stand in for the truth. That statement, no matter how painful, is the first step to healing. In the end, that morality is not a mean judge. It leads us back to love and respect. There are many things we can run away from, but Dostoevsky says remorse is not one of them. It stays with us through the night, our thoughts, and the quiet times when nothing else is around. It keeps coming back because it's important. Without it, we lose who we are. No matter how bad it is, it gives us a chance to become whole again. Dostoevsky thought that the conscience is the inner witness of what is true. It stays even if you try to think, drink, or run away from it. When we stray, it hurts us. But when we turn back, it makes us feel better. This thing is not our enemy. It is our best friend. It may cost us everything to listen to it, but it's the only voice that can lead us home. Lesson 3. Suffering can become transformative. Most of us think that pain has no point and is an unfair interruption to the life we had planned. Our bodies and minds use a lot of energy to avoid, dull, or ignore it. However, for Fyodor Dostoevsky, pain is at the very core of what it means to be human. In all of his books, the main idea is that suffering, even when it's painful and unpleasant, can change things for the better. It can show you the truth, make you compassionate, and lead to forgiveness. It's not always right to suffer. A lot depends on how we deal with it. But Dostoevsky says that pain can change us in ways that comfort never could if we accept it honestly. In real life, Dostoevsky knew what it was like to suffer. He spent years in a Siberian jail camp after being arrested for political activity. He met thieves, killers, and people who didn't fit in there. But instead of breaking him, the event changed the way he saw the world. Later, he wrote that the pain of prison taught him more about people, made him more compassionate, and gave him faith that wasn't based on ideas, but on life and hope. This personal truth permeates all of his writing. In his books, pain isn't just for show. It's an important part of how the characters grow. Dostoevsky sees it as a master that no one wants, but everyone has to deal with. It takes off covers and shows what's really going on underneath them. People face the truth about who they are when they are in pain. Dostoevsky also shows, though, that not everyone learns from pain. Some people try to avoid it by finding something else to do or denying it. The drunk father in the Brothers Karamazov, Fyodor Karamazov, drowns his pain in pleasure and ridicule all his life. His noise and hunger keep him from facing his guilt or loneliness. His dodging makes him bad, making him shallow and mean. In the same way, the underground man in Notes from Underground won't accept that he's hurt. He turns his pain into anger and uses it as a reason to hurt himself and be mean to others. Dostoevsky saw this as the danger. When we fight pain, we don't get rid of it. Instead, we make it worse. If you don't let yourself suffer, it turns into poison that poisons your mind and heart. On the other hand, people who honestly accept suffering find freedom they didn't expect. In Crime and Punishment, Sonia is poor, ashamed, and left out of society. But she doesn't let her pain make her tough. Instead, she turns it into kindness. She is strong because she is willing to go through pain for other people. She turns out to be the only person who can help Raskolnikov admit and be forgiven. Dostoevsky shows through Sonia that embracing pain instead of avoiding it can make us very empathetic. Being in pain means that someone can sit with someone else in their pain without running away. They are able to feel real love instead of just romantic thoughts. Dostoevsky thought that pain was like fire. It burned away false beliefs. Characters often start out with big ideas about how life should be. Big ideas about what is fair, what is logical, or what is better. But those ideas fall apart when pain comes into the picture. Raskolnikov's idea about unusual people falls apart when they feel guilty. When Ivan Karamazov sees how much his family is suffering, his intellectual revolt against God falls apart. When we go through pain, it shows us if our ideas can stand up to reality. It tests how strong our beliefs are, making what is real stand out and showing what isn't. In this way, pain makes us be honest in a way we might not be otherwise. One of the main ideas in Dostoevsky's writing is that sharing pain can change people. Pain by itself can be very heavy, but when people go through pain together, it can bring them closer together. In his semi-autobiographical book about jail life, called The House of the Dead, Dostoevsky shows how prisoners became friends with each other, despite their differences. Even though their backgrounds and crimes were different, the fact that they were all poor broke down boundaries and showed that they were all human. This lesson comes through in all of his writing. Pain separates when it's hidden, but it brings people together when it's shown. Being sorry, forgiving, and compassionate are all ways that one person chooses to feel another person's pain. Sharing doesn't get rid of pain, but it changes what it means. It stops being harmful and turns into a way for souls to connect. One of the most radical ideas in Dostoevsky's work is that pain can lead to redemption. This is not meant to make pain look good or imply that all pain is good. To the contrary, he shows that pain can lead to spiritual renewal in some situations. For Raskolnikov, confessing and being sent to Siberia are not just penalties, they are the start of getting better. His pain makes him humble and makes him look for value in things other than himself. In the same way, Dmitry Karamazov's desire to be punished for a crime he didn't do is a way of cleansing. He understands that pain can connect him to other people's pain, which makes him more fully present. Dostoevsky's paradox says that things that seem like loss can turn out to be wins. Things that seem like the end can turn into the start. When you go through pain with love and honesty, it can become the ground where healing grows. Dostoevsky does not downplay the horror of pain for no reason. Of course, he paints a very clear picture of the pain that children, the poor, and harmless people go through. Even Karamazov famously turns against God because he can't stand the thought of a world where good kids are hurting. This protest is not brushed off. It is given a lot of weight in the book. Dostoevsky knows that some pain is impossible to understand, but he won't give up hope. Not even here. He says that even though we can't always understand why people are suffering, we can choose how to deal with it. Love can still change pain, even when there is no clear meaning. Giving up the right to let suffering win is an act of faith in and of itself. What can we learn from Dostoevsky's view of pain today? That avoiding pain at all costs will only make you shallow and hopeless. That denying pain makes it worse, but facing it head on can make us better. That shared pain makes bonds of compassion stronger than any amount of comfort could ever be. And that suffering, even though it's scary, can be the way to redemption and meaning. This doesn't mean we want to suffer or find beauty in it. Pain is real. Scars are deep. And Dostoevsky makes this very clear, but he insists that we shouldn't waste our pain. It can teach us, make us humble, and change us. For Dostoevsky, pain is not the end of the story. It is often the start. It can make you see through your lies, bring you love, and lead to forgiveness. We can't decide if we will hurt or not. We can choose whether it changes us or breaks us, though. And in that choice lies one of the most important truths about life, that pain can bring out kindness, wisdom, and hope that is strong enough to last. Lesson 4. Love is an action, not a mood in daily speech. We talk about love as if it were a feeling, something that comes and goes, as if love were just a mood that comes and goes. We fall in love and then drift away from it. But Dostoevsky thought this narrow view missed the point of what love is all about. He is adamant that real love is not a feeling that you feel, but a choice that you make. Love is hard work, time, and sacrifice. Every day you have to choose to see someone as worthwhile and treat them that way. There is a clear line between emotional love and active love in Dostoevsky's books. Even if someone is feeling good, their mood will quickly drop when something goes wrong. Active love, on the other hand, goes through hard times, accepts flaws, and takes work. It's not how strongly you feel that matters, but how consistently you act. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky wrote one of the wisest chapters on this subject. When someone comes to visit, Elder Zosima says, "Active love is a harsh and terrible thing compared with love in dreams." The visitor thinks she could make great sacrifices if she had the chance, like running into burning buildings or taking care of sick people. She admits, though, that in real life, she can't stand it when her neighbors are annoying her or when her family needs something from her. Dostoevsky's point is shown by this difference. Sentimental love works best in big dreams, but not so well in everyday life. It seems honorable to think about giving up your life in one big act, but it gets old to put up with someone's flaws every day. Still, it's in these little everyday things that love shows itself. Love is more of a discipline for Dostoevsky than a feeling. It takes hard work, persistence, and humility. A person grows in love by doing acts of kindness, forgiveness, and care over and over again, just like a musician gets better by practicing every day. At first, the work may feel like a chore, but over time, it forms the heart. In Dostoevsky's works, characters who show this dedication stand out. Sonia shows active love in Crime and Punishment, not by talking, but by being there all the time. Even though she is embarrassed, she cares about her family, and she stays true to Raskolnikov, even though his crime makes her sick. Her love isn't flashy. It's steady, humble, and selfless. But it is this persistence that makes it strong enough to bring redemption to another life. Love costs something, because it is a deed. It means to give up comfort, pride, or ease of life for someone else in order to love them. Dostoevsky says that real love will make us wait, hurt our pride, and show how selfish we are. It's not always done with good thoughts. Sometimes it has to be done, even though you're tired or angry. Take the case of Alyosha Karamazov, who wants to follow what Elder Zosima says. Because he loves other people so much, he often has to put up with insults, teasing, and mistakes. But Alyosha keeps working. Not because he always feels loved, but because he chooses to believe that other people deserve care. His love is active because it lasts even when it doesn't get anything in return. Another part of Dostoevsky's idea is that active love means seeing someone as they really are, not as an idealized version of themselves. People in emotional love often hold on to false beliefs, thinking that the person they love is perfect or heroic. When the real world shows up, disappointment follows. Active love, on the other hand, accepts flaws. It loves the other person through their flaws, not because of them, because it knows that all lives are fragile. This is why Dostoevsky's books are so focused on confession and forgiveness. Being actively loving means being there for the other person, even when they've failed. The fact that Sonia's love for Raskolnikov lasts after she finds out about his guilt makes it transformative. She doesn't agree with what he did, but she won't leave him. Active love doesn't see people as their worst selves. It sees them as whole people who can be saved. Dostoevsky thought that one of the biggest risks was taking strong feelings for real love. Passion can be selfish and use the other person instead of helping them. Many of his characters fall deeply in love with someone, but their feelings quickly turn ugly when they are jealous, angry, or mean. This is love as a mood strong, but never solid. Active love, on the other hand, often seems quiet, unremarkable, or even unnoticeable to other people. It's the parent taking care of a child, the friend being there in a disaster, or the spouse forgetting about small mistakes every day. This kind of love might not make you feel very strongly, but it does build trust and keep life going. Dostoevsky saw that real love may look ordinary, but it has amazing power to heal and change people. Freedom is another important part of active love. Being forced to love someone is not love, it's abuse. Real love has to be picked over and over again. Dostoevsky shows that this freedom makes love weak because it can be turned down, lied to, or ignored. However, this very freedom is what makes love holy, since only a free give of self has real value. I think this is why Dostoevsky connects love and duty. To love fully means to take care of someone else's well-being, not in a controlling way, but in a way that sees how everything is connected. When we love someone, we choose their well-being when we act, because what we do affects them. In Dostoevsky's saddest stories, characters feel alone and hopeless when they don't feel loved or cared for. The cure is active love. It brings people back together and gives them purpose. Raskolnikov's sadness grows until Sonia's love stops it. Ivan Karamazov's mental pain gets too much for him to handle until Alyosha's love calms him down. There are many times when Dostoevsky says that the presence of someone who loves actively is better than any theory, thought, or achievement. Dostoevsky's lesson on love is very useful. Don't mix up your feelings and your actions. Before you love someone, do good things for them. When you're angry, choose calm. When it's easy to be angry, forgive someone. You should show up when it costs you something. Little things done over and over again make up real love. In this way, Dostoevsky changes what it means to be great. The bravest thing someone can do might not be a big sacrifice, but choosing every day to stay true, keep helping, and love even when no one is looking. This kind of love changes both the person loved and the person who loves them. It makes the heart strong, kind, and full of hope. Dostoevsky thought that love is not a state of mind that comes and goes. It's something you do, a habit, and a way of being in the world. It's not how strong your thoughts are that matter, but how consistent your actions are. Elder Zosima says that practicing love is hard and terrible because it takes away our pride and comfort, but it is also holy and transformative because it lets us share in the deepest truth of human life, which is that love, freely chosen and truly acted upon, sustains, redeems, and gives meaning to life. Lesson 5. Humility opens doors. Pride keeps shut. This is a lesson that seems counterintuitive in a society that values arrogance, ambition, and pride. Humility is not weakness. It is strength. His books show over and over that pride separates, blinds, and kills, while humility brings people together, heals, and allows them to grow. Dostoevsky thought that humility is not shyness or low opinion of oneself. Self-knowledge, that is the right size, means being ready to see yourself honestly, without exaggerating your good qualities or hiding your weaknesses. Being in this pose lets you learn, accept, and love. That's not all. Pride is in Dostoevsky's world. It's a deep refusal to need other people. Characters who are proud hold on to false ideas of being better than others, and expect to be seen as unique and even perfect. This need to be better than other people turns into a jail. They hate being told they're wrong, won't take correction, and can't connect honestly. Take a look at Ivan Karamazov. Ivan is smart, articulate, and proud of his intelligence, but he finds it hard to accept that he is weak, even though he makes strong arguments against faith and morals. His pride keeps him from making friends. He has to use comedy to talk about his pain. He puts up walls around himself, so he can't let love in. His pride in his intelligence keeps him from the relationships that could help him get better. In the same way, Raskolnikov wants to try his theory of superiority because he is proud of crime and punishment. He is adamant that he is morally superior and that he can kill someone without feeling guilty. But his pride keeps him from seeing how human he really is. Instead of freeing him, his pride chains him to fear and hopelessness. If pride makes people separate, humility brings people together because it is truth. A humble person doesn't need to make themselves feel better or hide their flaws. They don't feel bad about admitting they are stupid, weak, or dependent. Being honest helps you grow, since you can't learn something you already say you know. This is shown by Elder Zosima in The Brothers Karamazov. He knows his weaknesses, talks gently to everyone, even those who are evil, and knows that he needs God and other people. Being humble doesn't make him weak or passive. On the contrary, it gives him power and control. People believe him because he is honest. Because he is honest, other people feel free to be honest too, which builds a group based on truth rather than competition. Dostoevsky says that being humble is not the same as being weak. Being passive does not mean hating yourself or giving up. To be truly humble, you need to be very strong. It takes bravery to admit fault when pride wants you to keep quiet. To forgive when you've been hurt takes strength. To help others without getting anything in return takes inner stability. This kind of quiet strength is shown by Alyosha Karamazov. He listens more than he talks, wants to make peace instead of win, and doesn't get angry when people make fun of him. His modesty is not a sign of weakness. It is a deeper kind of courage, the bravery to love without expecting anything in return. Dostoevsky says in Alyosha that humility is power that has been stripped of ego. When pride isn't checked, it shuts many doors. By pressing on being right, it stops people from getting along. By refusing to be corrected, it stops knowledge. It hurts relationships by wanting to be admired. In Dostoevsky's books, people who are too proud often fail, not because they aren't good, but because they refuse to be humble. This path is shown by Svidrigailov in Crime and Punishment. His pride won't let him change. He can't accept boundaries or say he did something wrong. Even when he tries to be kind, he is motivated by his own needs. In the end, his pride leaves him alone and unable to see a way out, so he kills himself. He was too proud to open the door of hope, even though it wasn't locked. On the other hand, humility lets people in, when pride keeps them out. Being humble lets you confess, which fixes your ethics. It makes it possible to forget, which helps wounds heal. It lets people learn, which helps them grow. Being humble helps us connect with others, because it lets us know that we need each other. After finally admitting his mistake, taking the sentence, and letting Sonia's love reach him, Raskolnikov's life starts to change. The way is hard, but being humble makes it possible to be forgiven. If he had held on to his pride, his pain would have killed him. Being humble, on the other hand, makes room for hope. Dostoevsky thought that love and respect go hand in hand. Pride wants to be noticed, while humility wants to help others. Being humble turns relationships into partnerships instead of competitions. When pride rules, love can't grow because it needs people to be open, honest, and willing to give up their own needs. Elder Zosima says that being humble means taking responsibility for everyone. This extreme claim says that we are not separate people, but rather part of the same human family. To be humble is to see how everything is linked and to show compassion. In this way, humility isn't just a personal trait, it's also the key to getting along with others. Faith and humility are also linked by Dostoevsky. Pride wants to be independent and doesn't want to rely on others or God. On the other hand, humility knows our bounds and lets grace into our hearts. Do not take this to mean blind obedience. It means realizing that life is bigger than your ego, and that you can become wise by listening, trusting, and giving up. Ivan's pride makes him fight against God because he doesn't want to accept a world that he can't fully control or explain. Alosha's faith, on the other hand, comes from being humble and realizing that there is wonder, and that people can trust even when they don't fully understand. Dostoevsky says that pride gets in the way of faith and humility makes it possible. What does this mean for now? The lesson from Dostoevsky is clear. Don't think that being proud makes you strong. In the moment, pride may feel strong, but it hurts and separates people. Being humble goes against the grain, but it builds strength, connection, and knowledge. In real life, this means being honest over looking good, owning up to mistakes quickly, listening before speaking, and putting relationships ahead of being right. It means not putting ourselves up at the cost of others, and instead trying to help them. People might not like these habits, but they help bring about peace, trust, and growth. Dostoevsky thought that humility was not a sign of shame, but of freedom. It frees us from the hard job of keeping up illusions. We can be honest, forgive, learn, and love because of it. When we're proud, we shut down doors that lead to other people, knowledge, and hope. Being humble opens them up, bringing us back to the truth and to life itself. Being humble makes life harder, but it also makes you stronger in ways you didn't expect. It means giving up solitude for community, cockiness for knowledge, and delusion for truth. In both his and our worlds, being humble doesn't make us smaller, it makes us whole. Lesson 6. The poor are fully human, not symbols. In political talks and philosophical systems, poor people are often used as figures of speech, or as examples, or symbols to make a point. But for Dostoevsky, this is a very unfair downgrade. His books make it clear that the poor are not tools for promoting ideas. They're real people, with feelings, dreams, and the right to be treated with respect. To really see the poor, you have to meet them as people, not just think about them. Dostoevsky thought that how we see and treat the poor show not only how society works, but also how human we are. In Russia, in the 1800s, social thinkers argued about the people, who were sometimes called narod. Intellectuals talked about the poor as a group that needed to be controlled, helped, or used to support a political revolution. But Dostoevsky, who lived for years in Siberia with poor people and thieves, didn't agree with this generalization. He had lived with poor people, seen them suffer, and been through the same hard times as them. He thought that the poor could never be summed up as the people. Each of them had a story, a soul, and an indescribable sense of worth. This belief shapes his writing. Dostoevsky doesn't make a beggar, a worker, or a prisoner into cartoon characters when he writes about them. They have voices, memories, and inner tensions because of him. Their lives may be limited by being poor, but their humanity is not. Crime and Punishment has a powerful case of this. A drunk government worker named Marmeladov gives a long speech about how bad he is and how much his family is suffering. At first glance, Marmeladov seems like a pathetic person. He is hooked, careless, and a burden on those around him. But Dostoevsky gives him a moment of shockingly high honor. In his statement to Raskolnikov, he says that one day even he, who is so bad, will be accepted with kindness. When this hope is spoken with slurred speech, it forces the viewer to look past his ruin and see his humanity. Dostoevsky tells us that being poor doesn't take away our worth. Situations can take away someone's chances, but they can't put out their life. Rich people haven't failed to make poor people. They're not signs of shame or guilt. They are fully human, with the same basic needs, morals, and options as everyone else. Dostoevsky also says that the poor shouldn't be used to spread ideas. In Demons, which is also known as the Devils, rebels say they are fighting to free the people, but the way they talk about the poor makes them sound like players in a political game. They use big words to talk about the masses, but they don't care about or respect individual people. This dishonesty made Dostoevsky very angry. He saw a dangerous pattern. When poor people are used as icons, their real needs and humanity are forgotten. Even though ideologies may offer freedom, they dehumanize. If they take away people's uniqueness, Dostoevsky thought that it was unfair for any society, whether it was conservative or revolutionary, to treat the poor as things instead of people. Dostoevsky also stresses that real kindness doesn't start with feelings of pity, but with actual interactions. It's possible for pity to be condescending. It sees the poor as things that need help, not as partners. Encounter, on the other hand, means sharing life, listening, and seeing in crime and punishment. Sonia is a good example of this. Her family needs money, so she has to work as a prostitute. But when Raskolnikov tells her what he did, she doesn't feel sorry for him from afar. She sits with him, cries with him, and goes into exile with him. Her unity is not just an idea, it is real. She doesn't see him as a sign. She sees him as a person whose pain she wants to share. Dostoevsky shows in Sonia that real compassion treats people with care. Life is different for everyone, but presence and love can bring people together. Another interesting thing about Dostoevsky's poor people is how funny they are. Even when they are sad, his peasants, beggars, and prisoners often laugh, tell stories, and make jokes. This information is very important. It keeps us from reducing poor people to their pain alone. They are not sad figures stuck in hopelessness. They are full people who can be happy, funny, and strong. In The House of the Dead, Dostoevsky writes about times when prisoners laugh and get along, even when things are very bad. Their humor becomes a way for them to fight back, a reminder that being poor and struggling do not make them less human. Another way to reduce would be to only see their pain. Their laughing gives us a better look at things. Dostoevsky thought that how we treat the poor was a moral test. Do we see them as signs of our beliefs? Do we ignore them because they're in the way? Do we feel sorry for them in a way that makes us feel farther away? Or do we see them as friends, as equals, as people with the same worth that we do? This question is about more than just society. As Elder Zosima says in The Brothers Karamazov, everyone is responsible for everyone else. To not care about the poor is to fail at your duty. Seeing and helping them is a sign that all people are connected. In Dostoevsky's moral world, our fate is linked to theirs. At the same time, Dostoevsky doesn't make poverty seem appealing. He doesn't say that poor people are naturally good or noble. His bad guys can be selfish, mean, or broken, just like real people. Being poor doesn't make you a saint. It just shows how complicated people are in worse situations. It's important that you don't romanticize this. Having high hopes for the poor is just another way of abstracting them. Real respect means seeing them as fully human, with good and bad traits, beauty and ugly, just like everyone else. How did Dostoevsky treat the poor? What can we learn from this? That abstractions are dangerous. That sorrow without respect is low class. That poor people are not images, but real people with worth. In real life, this means putting people over ideas, getting to know people, hearing stories, and sharing life. It means fighting the urge to put people into groups, whether it's out of blame or nostalgia. It means realizing that everyone has the same human worth, no matter what their position is. For Dostoevsky, the poor are not the people in the abstract. We consider them family, friends, and fellow travelers. Each of their souls is as big as ours. To use them as images is to take away their humanity. Meeting them as people is a way to remember what it means to be human. In this way, the way we see poor people is like a mirror. If we only see problems, we show how shallow we are. We show how ideologically blind we are when we only see symbols. But if we see them as fully human, complex, dignified, worthy of love, we show the truth about ourselves as well. For Dostoevsky, this view is not optional. It is the measure of our morals and perhaps the most practical expression of our love. Lesson 7. Self-deception is easier than honesty. It's amazing how good people are at lying to themselves. To avoid facing the hard truths, we twist facts, make up complicated explanations, and hold on to illusions. Dostoevsky had a very clear understanding of this trend. His books show over and over that lying to yourself is easier than being honest, but it's also much worse. In the short term, living in lies may feel better, but it hurts our souls, changes the truth, and keeps us stuck in cycles of fear and guilt. On the other hand, being honest hurts, but it sets us free and restores our dignity. Why is lying to yourself so appealing? Dostoevsky says, it's because telling the truth hurts so much. Being honest about our flaws, guilt, or limits hurts our pride. So we take the easier route. We tell ourselves that our intentions are good, our decisions are right, and our deeds are okay. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov is this desire come true. He tells himself that he is killing the pawn shop owner for a better good before he does it. He tells himself that getting rid of a louse will be good for everyone. At least for now, this explanation helps him shut down his guilt. But his lies about himself can't stand up to truth. When the crime is over, the truth comes out, and all of his excuses fall apart under the weight of his shame. Dostoevsky made a clear point. Lying to yourself is easy at first, but it never works out in the long run. The truth always comes out, and the longer lies are told, the worse it is when they are caught. Small lies are often the start of self-deception. I only did it because I had no choice, says a character to explain away a small mistake. Soon, this turns into a habit. Every action has a reason for it. Over time, the person builds a whole personality around lies. Dostoevsky shows what he calls a fake life by showing how the lies add up. This is something that the Underground Man from Notes from Underground does very well. He keeps saying that he is free and that the only reason he acts crazy is to show that he is free. But behind his confidence lies a deep sense of unease. He tricks himself into thinking he is in charge when he is really controlled by his anger and dislike of himself. His long talks are not real attempts to know himself. They are desperate attempts to hide from it. In this way, Dostoevsky shows how self-deception gets worse, not through one big lie, but through a buildup of small lies that make it hard to tell the difference between truth and illusion. Self-deception is sad because it doesn't keep us safe. It locks us up. When figures in Dostoevsky's works keep telling lies, they become broken, restless, and suspicious. They don't trust anyone else because they don't trust themselves. One scary example is Svidrigailov in Crime and Punishment. He tells himself that his aggressive behavior is not important and is even funny. He tells himself that he doesn't have to follow any rules because he is decent. But because he lies to himself, he is alone and can't have real connections. When his fantasies finally fall apart, he realizes how empty his life is and decides to end his life rather than face the truth. Dostoevsky says that lying to yourself is not only dishonest, it is also harmful. It stops people from repenting, hurts their feelings, and gets in the way of love. Characters lose the chance to change when they refuse to be honest. Why do people keep lying to themselves if it's so bad for them? Because being honest is hard. There is a chance of shame, weakness, and rejection when you tell the truth about yourself. Being humble, brave, and ready to suffer are all things that are needed. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dmitry Karamazov has to deal with his flaws, his hastiness, his reckless emotions, and his selfishness. Ivan is very proud of his intelligence, but Dmitry is starting to see his flaws. Even though it hurts, his honesty makes people like him more. He is real, but he is not yet good. And because he is real, he still has the chance to be forgiven. Dostoevsky saw this as the paradox. Being honest hurts pride, but heals the soul. It's good for pride to lie to yourself, but it's bad for the soul. Dostoevsky shows that confession can help people who are lying to themselves. When someone confesses, they have to give up their lies and tell the truth. It's scary because it takes away defenses, but it's also freeing because it brings back ethics. This power is shown by Raskolnikov's statement. He finally accepts his crime after pages of making excuses and lying to himself. The act makes them feel bad, but it also frees them. Since the murder, he can finally live in the real world again. After all these years, he can be saved not by making logical reasons, but by being completely honest and confessing his sins. Dostoevsky applies this lesson to society as a whole, not just to people. He warns that whole groups of people, or even whole countries, can be deceived by beliefs that make cruel or unfair behavior. In Demons, rebels trick themselves into thinking that their vision of progress makes violence and manipulation. Their lies about themselves don't free them. Instead, they cause chaos and damage. According to Dostoevsky, the danger is that when society lies, people feel like they have to do the same. It becomes normal to lie, and being honest is seen as a threat. In this kind of society, lies take the place of truth, and people lose the ability to face reality together. Even though it's easy to lie to yourself, Dostoevsky believes that people can be honest. People who change are the ones who have the guts to face themselves, no matter how painful it is. One example is Sonia, who is honest about her pain. It's not true that her life is easy or that the decisions she makes are the best, but being honest makes her strong, and it lets her lead Raskolnikov to the truth. Dostoevsky thought that being honest did not mean being perfect. It means not believing in false things. It means admitting mistakes without making excuses, accepting bounds without getting angry, and asking for forgiveness when you need to. This courage to see clearly is the beginning of freedom. What does Dostoevsky teach us about self-deception? That it is easier than honesty, but far more dangerous. That small lies grow into false lives. Even though it was embarrassing, that statement freed me. Being honest hurts, but it's the only way to grow, make peace, and be forgiven. In real life, this means being honest about our reasons, fighting the urge to make excuses, and always looking for the truth, even if it costs us. It means working on being humble, since only humble people can say what's really going on. Dostoevsky had a timeless insight. Lying to ourselves may keep our pride safe, but it kills our soul. Being honest can hurt our pride, but it also makes us people again. Living in lies is like living in pieces. To live honestly is to live fully. It might be hard to make the choice, but the results are clear. In the end, it's better to go through the pain of being honest than to stay locked up in lies. Lesson 8. Community saves us from ourselves. Dostoevsky had a very deep understanding of the mind. One of his most constant ideas was that when we are left to our own devices, we fall apart. Being alone makes our worst traits, like lying to ourselves, being paranoid, and feeling hopeless, worse. When you're by yourself, your mind goes in endless loops, making up reasons and building up anger. But community breaks this loop. Other people, friends, family, teachers, or even strangers, become mirrors that show us the truth, anchors that keep us steady, and friends who carry the weight of our problems with us. In Dostoevsky's mind, society is not a luxury. It is a way to escape the prison of self. Dostoevsky's works often deal with the idea of being alone. His figures who cut themselves off from others are often the ones who are in the most pain. This is wonderfully shown by the underground man in Notes from Underground. He pulls away from people, turning down relationships, and snubbing closeness. When he is by himself, he stews in anger and makes up endless excuses for his mistakes. He hurts himself by being alone and is stuck in a cycle of anger and sorrow. Dostoevsky says that being alone changes the truth. When we're by ourselves, we fall short. Small slights become unbearable. Secret fantasies turn into obsessions, and guilt is too much to bear. Without the calming company of other people, our thoughts can go in any direction. Being alone doesn't free us. It makes us slaves to our own thoughts. Community is important because it shows you what you're like. On our own, we don't always have a good view of ourselves. Others show us our blind spots by reflecting back what we do. They show us when we are being unfair, self-centered, or not telling the truth. Think about Raskolnikov. If he had been left to his own devices, his ideas about being better and killing being okay might have hardened into delusions. But when he's with Sonia, his mother and sister, and the police who won't let him hide, his false beliefs are put to the test. He can see his own soul in Sonia's kindness more than anything else. Being around her makes him see both his sin and his ability to change. His lies about himself might have killed him without her. In this way, community breaks up the echo chamber of self. It helps you see things as they really are. Sharing the load is another important thing that communities do. Pain is heavy, and no one person can carry it alone. The House of the Dead, Dostoevsky's prison memoir, talks about how inmates found ways to share their hardships. Even in Siberia, which was a harsh place, they shared stories, laughed, and helped each other get through it. The group didn't get rid of the pain, but it made it easier to deal with. Elder Zosima teaches the same thing in The Brothers Karamazov. He keeps telling us that we are responsible for each other as well as ourselves. When we live together, we have to accept that our lives are linked and that your problems are also my problems. This sense of shared duty makes life bearable. It's not easy to live in a neighborhood. Dostoevsky doesn't make it sound nice. There is a lot of strife, irritation, and disappointment in communities, but he insists that it is exactly in this trouble that good traits like patience and forgiveness are developed. Zosima says that active love means putting up with other people's flaws without running away to yourself. It means making the choice to forgive over and over, even when pride tells you to stay away. We are saved by community not because it is perfect, but because it teaches us how to live with flaws in ourselves and others. The monastery in The Brothers Karamazov is one of Dostoevsky's most powerful pictures of community. There are flaws in the nuns. They are not perfect. They fight, get each other wrong, and have pride problems. Still, their life together, based on prayer, service, and confession, shows how community can save. The monastery practices things that help people avoid being alone. Confessing sins brings them to light. Eating meals together breaks down walls. And following elders' instructions teaches humility. Dostoevsky doesn't show this as a perfect heaven. Instead, he shows it as a place to learn how to love. In his mind, community is not perfect peace, but a shared effort to be good. In Dostoevsky's books, families are also important groups. Even though they are often very dysfunctional, they bring people together, like the Karamazov brothers, who are related by blood even though they fight a lot. Their relationships are where they have to deal with their anger, pride, and guilt. Family, which is hard to get away from, is often the hardest type of community to deal with, as Dostoevsky shows. However, this difficulty is what changes things. If you don't learn to be patient, forgiving, and humble in your family, you will become filled with anger. The ties that bind us to family make us grow, even if we don't want to. It is important to note that Dostoevsky distinguished between real community and collectivist ideology. Community respects individuality, seeing each person as unique and irreplaceable. Collectivism, on the other hand, sees people as replaceable parts of a system. Radical rebels and demons talk about the people, but they only see people as tools for their cause. There is no real group here. This is just manipulation. Dostoevsky says that collectivism makes people less human by taking away their dignity. True community, on the other hand, values both individuality and how people are linked to each other. It saves us because it gives us freedom and duty at the same time. Dostoevsky thought that community has a moral side to it. Living with other people is not only sensible, it's also how people are meant to live. We were made to have relationships, both with other people and with God. Isolation separates us from this truth, but society brings it back to us. In his books, confession, forgiveness, shared pain, and taking responsibility for each other all have religious meanings. Not only do they help you feel better, but they also show you how love works on a divine level. Community is holy because it shows that no one can be saved by themselves. What does this mean for now? Dostoevsky's lesson is easy to understand but hard to follow. Don't try to live by yourself. It may feel safer to be alone, but being alone confuses reality and makes depression worse. Community is hard and messy, but it's important. In real life, this means looking for relationships where you can be honest, sharing your problems instead of keeping them to yourself, and forgiving others instead of running away. It means fighting the urge to live our lives only in our own minds, and instead letting others correct, support, and love us. For Dostoevsky, community is not a choice. It is a must. When we're by ourselves, we lose perspective, feel guilty all the time, and give up hope. We find mirrors that help us improve, hands that hold us up, and hearts that forgive us when we work together. Community doesn't take away pain, but it makes it easier to handle. It doesn't fix flaws, but it does teach you to be patient. Dostoevsky thought that living with other people was the only way to save ourselves in a world that values individual freedom. His message is more important than ever. We were made for each other, and we can only truly live when we are together. Lesson 9. Guilt demands confession, not cleverness. Being guilty is one of the most common feelings in the world. We feel it when we know deep down that we have broken what is good and right. But our first reaction is to avoid it, to hide, to make sense of it, or to distract ourselves with clever reasons. Dostoevsky had a good grasp of this urge. In his books, there are lots of people who try to avoid feeling guilty, but the more they try, the heavier their guilt gets. He thinks that confession, not being smart, is the way to move forward. When you're guilty, telling the truth is the only way to heal. When guilt hits, the mind starts looking for ways to get away right away. We make up reasons why we had to do something wrong, why we had no choice, and why other people are just as much to blame. We use our brains to hide our morals. Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment is a good example of this method. He tries to get out of being responsible for killing the pawn shop owner by being smart. He goes over points about extraordinary men who can break moral rules again and again. He tells himself that what he did wasn't really murder, but a way to free himself. He even tries to trick people by telling half-truths and avoiding questions. But his guilt gets worse the more he leans on his smarts. His excuses only make his pain worse, because his guilt won't give in to logic. Dostoevsky shows that guilt is not an intellectual issue that needs to be fixed, but a moral fact that needs to be dealt with. Being smart can't get rid of guilt. It can only put off the inevitable. It doesn't go away when guilt is hidden. It gets worse. When characters try to hide their guilt, they become confused, antsy, and suspicious. Every look and talk makes you feel like you could be exposed. The mind gets loud and full of worry and fear. This is shown by Raskolnikov's feverish anxiety. He becomes very alert because he thinks other people can see through him. He isn't able to rest, think straight, or even act properly. His crazy behavior shows that he is guilty, which makes people even more suspicious. Dostoevsky's world has a lot of hidden guilt that makes life unbearable. It's like a heavy weight pressing on the mind. For Dostoevsky's guilty figures, confessing is always what changes things. When you confess, you stop hiding, give up your clever reasons, and tell the truth straight out. The truth is that it is both embarrassing and freeing. When you confess, you get rid of the weight of lying and recover your integrity. When Raskolnikov finally admits what he did, it is both terrible and healing. He doesn't get away with his sentence. He gladly takes it. But the confession brings him back to the real world. He no longer has to keep up a lie-filled web. He can start living honestly again. The fact that Sonia is with him shows how confession can save a person. It makes it possible to forgive and heal. In Dostoevsky's mind, confession is more than just a formal or social act. As a spiritual act, it brings the self back into line with the truth. It doesn't get rid of the effects, but it brings back the chance of being whole. This brings up a paradox in Dostoevsky's mind. Guilt can be a gift, even though it hurts. It's a sign that we've gone off track and need to get back on track. If we didn't feel guilty, we might keep doing bad things forever. When we feel guilty, we want to admit. And when we do that, we can be forgiven. Characters who are honest about their sorrow are the ones who grow. Even though Dmitry Karamazov is weak and acts without thinking, he takes responsibility for his mistakes. Even though he was wrongly accused of killing his father, he was ready to take responsibility, which shows that he is more honest than his brothers, who try to avoid responsibility. For Dostoevsky, being able to admit guilt, even if it's too much guilt, is ethically better than denying it altogether. Characters who reject guilt, on the other hand, are hollow. For example, Svidrigailov is abused and used all the time. He tells himself that he doesn't feel guilty and that morality doesn't apply to him. What he says, though, leaves him empty. In the end, he can't face his life honestly, and his suicide shows how hopeless he was after refusing to admit. Dostoevsky saw this as the end of denial. Not feeling guilty is not freedom, but numbness. This is the loss of morality itself, which makes the person unable to be saved. It hurts to feel guilty, but it's much scarier to not feel any guilt at all. Dostoevsky's confessions are rarely made by one person. It almost always takes place before someone else. This is important. Feelings of guilt make people shut down and keep secrets. By re-establishing a connection, confession breaks down this feeling of being alone. To confess means to tell someone the truth about your life. You risk being turned down, but you also open the door to healing. Raskolnikov's statement depends on Sonia's part in it. He might not have had the courage to do it by himself. Being with her makes him strong enough to face the truth. There is more to confession than just saying the truth, according to Dostoevsky. It's also about being accepted in the truth. People don't heal alone, they heal in groups. In the end, Dostoevsky shows how smartness and bravery are different. Being clever is the easy way out, making excuses, hiding blame, and changing how things look. But it makes the pain worse. Being brave means telling the truth, accepting the results, and taking responsibility. But this way leads to freedom. This is Dostoevsky's paradox. Confessing is the most shameful thing a person can do, but it's also the most honorable thing they can do. In an honest way, it admits guilt, takes responsibility, and picks truth over lies. Being honest is the purest form of bravery. What does Dostoevsky teach us about being guilty? That skill can't solve the problem. It gets worse when you hide. Even though it was embarrassing, that statement freed me. Not only is guilt not pointless pain, it is also a call to return to the truth. In real life, this means fighting the urge to defend ourselves when our conscience accuses us. It means owning up to mistakes quickly, saying sorry in a real way, and speaking the truth even if it costs you. It means putting honesty above appearance. Even though these things are hard, they set us free from the jail of guilt. For Dostoevsky, sorrow is not a problem that the mind needs to solve, but a call that the heart needs to answer. We can make clever reasons to shut guilt up, but it won't go away until we do. And when we finally do it, when we tell the truth out loud and take responsibility, we not only get out of pain, but we also have the chance to be forgiven. In the end, guilt, not cleverness, makes people admit, and confession is the way back to freedom, love, and life, even though it makes us feel weak. Lesson 10. Beauty points beyond utility. Often, when we think of beauty, we think of how it can be used. A beautiful home is valuable because it makes the value of the house go up. People want to buy beautiful paintings because they can be sold. Sometimes, even the beauty of nature is judged by how well it brings in guests or gets people to work. But Dostoevsky thought that this way of thinking missed what beauty is all about. Beauty isn't just a tool or a decoration. This is a deep force that wakes up the soul and leads us to the truth. For Dostoevsky, beauty is not just something pretty to look at. It's a discovery. It gives you access to things that are deeper than usefulness or wealth. Beauty can heal, change the way someone wants things, and even save someone from hopelessness. But when it's not connected to the truth, it can also trick and seduce. According to Dostoevsky, beauty is strong, dangerous, and not possible without it. The famous line, "Beauty will save the world," is said by Prince Myshkin in The Idiot. People often take the saying the wrong way, thinking it's a sentimental statement. There was more to what Dostoevsky meant. He thinks that beauty has the power to bring people out of sadness and into the light. Beauty shows us a truth that we can't simplify into something useful. A tune, a piece of art, or even a kind act can make you long for what is right and good. It breaks up the monotony of self-interest and tells us that there is more to life than numbers. When Raskolnikov sees Sonia's pure love, it makes him feel something morally beautiful. She doesn't get anything good from being compassionate. In fact, it costs her a lot, but its beauty cuts through his sadness and makes him want to admit. Dostoevsky shows that beauty can save people in this way. Dostoevsky also warns that beauty that is cut off from truth can be harmful. A pretty face or well-spoken words can lead someone to be mean or dishonest. This danger is shown by Svidrigailov. He uses his charisma and charm to hide the fact that he is bad. His charm hurts people instead of helping them. This difference is very important. Real beauty raises you up and points to goodness and truth. False beauty tricks people for their own selfish or sexual reasons. Dostoevsky says that being able to tell the difference is a moral duty. If you mix them up, disaster could happen. For Dostoevsky, beauty makes people want something, but what that want isn't clear. It can go up toward love and kindness, or down toward obsession and damage. Longing gets stronger when you see something beautiful, but where that longing goes makes all the difference. In The Idiot, Nastasia Filipovna is shown to be heartbreakingly beautiful. The way she looks makes people want her, but because it's tied to shame, trickery, and tragedy, it often leads to disaster as well as happiness. Miss Shikin cares about her, but other people want to take her, which causes violence and hopelessness. When beauty gets mixed up with pride or fear, like in her story, it can turn bad. Dostoevsky doesn't blame beauty for this risk though, but instead, he stresses how powerful it is. Beauty is not a small thing. It's a force that can make things better or worse. Also, Dostoevsky shows how beauty can comfort people who are hurting. Even though the House of the Dead is set in a grim jail camp, there are times when beauty shines through, like when a fellow prisoner sings a song, or when you see nature outside the walls and remember home. These glimpses show the prisoners that they are more than their pain. Beauty becomes a way to fight against hopelessness, a quiet way to show that life still has value. It's deeply human to realize that beauty can keep us going when nothing else can. It tells us that even when things look the worst, goodness and truth are still there. Dostoevsky thought that beauty eventually leads to the divine, beyond the world of matter. He thought that the way people react to beauty shows how much they want God. There is something that a sunrise, a melody, or an act of kindness can do that no utilitarian argument can fully explain. It speaks to the soul because it shows a deeper level of meaning. This is why Myshkin keeps saying that beauty can save, even though he is called foolish. He understands that beauty is not just pretty, but holy, a sign that can't be seen, that points to the truth. To see real beauty is to catch a glimpse of infinity. Dostoevsky doesn't show beauty as easy or risk-free. It is never clear and always dangerous. It is said that beauty can save or kill, make people holy or seductive. This uncertainty forces us to make choices. The heart's job is to love beauty in the right way, so it leads to truth instead of away from it. This is why Dostoevsky says morals and beauty must go hand in hand. Beauty that isn't based in truth is worship. If there is no beauty, there is no truth. They only point to wholeness when they are used together. So, what does Dostoevsky teach us about what makes something beautiful? That you shouldn't judge a tool by how useful it is.
You don't have to be rich to enjoy it. It's something the soul needs. Beauty makes us want more, comforts us when we're sad, and leads us beyond the everyday to the transcendent. In real life, this means giving attention to beauty as a participant, not as a consumer. It means making places where beauty can grow, like in music, art, kindness, and fairness. It means fighting the urge to use beauty for gain or to manipulate others. It also means learning how to love beauty in a way that doesn't change the truth. For Dostoevsky, beauty is never something small. It is scary, but it is also good. It may tempt, but it may also save. The soul can't be explained, and longs for things that will last forever because of this force. Mishkin says, beauty will save the world, not beauty as decoration or use, but beauty as revelation. Beauty that leads to truth and goodness. Beauty that makes people love. Beauty that comforts the hurt and calls the guilty to repentance. In a world that is all about being useful, Dostoevsky's message is very important. Beauty is important because it shows us things that can't be counted. It's not just a pretty thing on top of life. It leads to the deeper meaning of life.
Lesson 11. Reason has limits. The heart has depths. Reason is often seen as the most important human trait in modern society. It is seen as the tool that explains, organizes, and solves problems. Progress is promised by rational planning, certainty by science, and clarity by reasoning. But Dostoevsky tells us not to put too much faith in reason. His books show that reason has its limits. Even though it is useful, it can't fully understand what it means to be human, especially the illogical forces of love, pride, pain, and faith. Dostoevsky thought that the human heart was more important than any kind of reasoning. It is a huge mistake to think of people in terms of equations or ideas. Dostoevsky did not oppose reason. He found intelligence admirable and often drew people who were very smart. For example, Ivan Karamazov's refusal to obey God is both beautiful and rational. His points are clear and strong, but Dostoevsky shows that thoughts are not enough to carry the weight of life. Even though Ivan's reasoning can describe pain, it can't heal it. His reasons make injustice clear, but they can't make people feel better when they're sad. Dostoevsky says that reason is important, but not enough. It can talk about problems, but it can't explain the secrets of the soul that needs something more in depth. Notes from Underground may be where Dostoevsky's harshest attack on logic can be found. The underground man is very angry at the utopian thinkers of his time, who thought that logical systems could predict and control how people would act. They said that people would act in their own best interests, and society would do well if we gave them education, technology, and smart rules. This idea is made fun of by the underground man. He is adamant that people will do things that are against their best interests, just to show that they are free. He laughs and says, 2 times 2 is 4, but I say 2 times 2 is 5, just to show I'm not a machine. The point he's making is that reason can't control how stubbornly illogical people are. People will sometimes pick pain over ease, disorder over orderliness, and ruin over health and happiness, just to show that they are independent. This is where Dostoevsky predicted that modern psychology would find the unconscious, or the illogical drives that reason can't hold. He tells us that people are not neat puzzles that need to be solved. Dostoevsky had a lot of doubts about systems that promised to be able to explain everything about people. In Demons, rebels come up with big ideas that they say will make society work again, based on logic. But their method takes away people's uniqueness and turns them into parts of a machine. There is no freedom, only chaos and murder. Systems don't take into account the deepest parts of people's hearts, like their desire, guilt, kindness, and pride. They treat people like things that can be predicted, but people can't be predicted. They are strange and don't make sense. It's a disaster when systems try to get around this puzzle. The logic is too simple, and Dostoevsky raises the mystery of the heart above it. For him, the heart is more than just a place to feel things. It's the center of a person, where freedom, love, and morality live. There are contradictions in the heart that can't be solved by reasoning. It can hate and love at the same time, believe and question at the same time, and want freedom while being afraid of it. This depth is shown by characters like Alyosha Karamazov. His faith is not based on argument. It is trust that he has lived by. His kindness goes against logic. He doesn't react to people with logic, but with love and presence. Dostoevsky says that this ability to connect with the deepest parts of the heart is more fully human than thinking things from a distance. There is a scary idea in Dostoevsky's writing about reason without love. When intelligence works without kindness, it turns mean because of how he thinks. Ivan Karamazov can reject God because of innocent pain. His case is strong, but it makes him feel alone and hurt. His younger brother Alyosha doesn't argue back. Instead, he cries and hugs him. Love can unite people who are hurting, which is something that reason alone can't do. In the same way, Raskolnikov's rational idea makes murder okay in Crime and Punishment, but theory falls apart when it comes to the fact of killing and guilt. While reason is important, love is even more important. You might be foolish to love without reason, but you are cruel to reason without love. Dostoevsky says they have to stay together. Doubt is linked to this idea by Dostoevsky as well. He knew that argument could not be used to show that faith in God was true. Ivan's disobedience shows the scientific case against faith. It's not irrational, though. Dostoevsky writes about people like Sonia and Alyosha, whose faith lives in the deep of the heart rather than in logical arguments. Sonia can't convince Raskolnikov to change his mind. She shows her faith instead through love, forgiveness, and giving up things she wants. His heart is affected by what she does, not his mind. For Dostoevsky, this proves that deep facts can't be shown in the same way that theorems can. You have to live them, trust them, and become them. While faith doesn't go against reason, it does go beyond it and into places that reason can't reach. Dostoevsky doesn't want us to give up reason. He wants us to make it less important. The limits of reason must be known. It can sort facts, build tools, and even shed light on moral issues. But it can't take the place of the wonder of freedom, the depth of love, or the complexity of desire. Reason can be a servant of truth instead of a tyrant when it knows its bounds. What happens when reason takes too much power? The underground man's anger shows. Alyosha's kindness shows what can happen when faith, love, and humility lead reason in the right way. Dostoevsky's wisdom is still very important today. People often put too much faith in data, algorithms, and logical processes, but he tells us not to forget about the heart. People are not tools that can be programmed. There are many things that make us free and strange. Putting us down to logic alone is a bad way to understand us, and could lead to cruelty. In real life, this means realizing that logic alone won't fix relationships, that arguments won't heal pain, and that love can't be boiled down to a cost-benefit analysis. To value reason as a tool rather than a god is what it means. It means paying attention to the consciousness, compassion, and longing that are deep inside the heart, where reason can't reach. As Dostoevsky saw it, reason has its bounds, but the heart has its depths. Logic can explain a lot, but it can't hold the secrets of faith, freedom, and love. While systems can help keep society running, they can't catch the soul's contradictions. That doesn't mean giving up on reason. Putting it in service of the bigger truth of the human heart is what it means. It is not deep to live only by reason. To live from the heart is to accept all that it means to be human. Lesson 12. Ideologies can become excuses for cruelty. The overuse of ideas was one of the things that bothered Dostoevsky the most. He lived in Russia during a time of great political change, with atheism, socialism, and extreme reform taking over. He didn't just brush these groups off. He fought with them, argued with them, and sometimes even agreed with their goals. He also saw a very serious threat, though putting ideas above people can make them okay to be mean. Through his books, Dostoevsky shows how easy it is to sacrifice people for vague goals. No matter how good an ideology's stated goal is, he thinks it turns bad as soon as it says it's okay to hurt people for the greater good. Ideas are strong because they give us purpose and direction. Ideologies, in particular, try to explain everything about the world and promise a better future with no more pain. They play on our need for meaning and clarity. In Demons, which is also known as the devils or the possessed, radical revolutionaries wanted to change society for the better through growth and reason. The ideas they believe in give them certainty and zeal, but Dostoevsky shows how this zeal can quickly turn bad. People are less important than the cause. One human life, with all of its meaning and worth, is thrown away as useless. It is explained away as required to be cruel. Ideology turns moral evil into a strategic necessity in this way. One thing that Dostoevsky says over and over is that beliefs turn people into means instead of ends. When a vague idea takes precedence, people's worth is lost. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov is this desire come true. Because of his idea about unusual people, he can see the pawn shop owner as just another obstacle. He says that killing her has a bigger goal. It frees up resources that can be used more effectively. But his idea falls apart when he faces the fact that she is human. His morals are at odds with the cold logic of dogma. The crime is not some vague idea. It is deadly, personal, and terrible. Dostoevsky says that being rude to others is inevitable when we see them as things that can be thrown away. Dehumanization can't be done for any good reason. The most dangerous thing about ideology is that it can hide cruelty as morals. Revolutionaries and demons tell themselves that the hope of freedom makes their violence okay. Svidrigailov tells himself that his predatory actions aren't important because he has bigger goals. It's always cruel when someone puts on a mask of purpose. In Dostoevsky's time, political radicals were using fear as an excuse for progress, which made this danger very clear to him. But he sees it as a challenge that all people face, the urge to justify harm by pointing the finger at something more important. The pattern is the same, whether it's about politics, religion, or a person's own life. Cruelty is made to make sense, and consciousness is shut down. Love and dreams and love and action are two different things that Elder Zosima talks about in The Brothers Karamazov. He warns that some people may say they love humanity in a general way, but hate specific people. This kind of vague love is often encouraged by ideologies. They talk passionately about the people or the nation, but they don't pay attention to or even hurt the person who is standing in front of them. This paradox is shown by Ivan Karamazov. He says he won't accept a world where innocent people suffer, but his high moral standards keep him from wanting to connect with real people. He stays away from the people who need him the most because he loves justice in a general sense. Dostoevsky tells us that real morality isn't measured by love for people, but by love for people as people. Dostoevsky may have been most critical of philosophy in Demons. The book is about a group of radicals who are so dedicated to their cause that they lie, trick others, and finally kill. Their ideas, which started out as a way to free people, turn into injustice and chaos. Dostoevsky doesn't say that all reforms are doomed. Instead, he says that ideology turns evil when people are treated like pawns in the pursuit of ideas that are evil. In the book, the demons are not real spirits, but rather harmful ideas that take over people and make them act in cruel ways. Dostoevsky shows how compassion and duty can be used to fight the cruelty of ideology. He says that real morals starts with the face of the neighbor, not with abstract ideas. Dostoevsky's counterexamples are Sonia's kindness toward Raskolnikov, Alyosha's acceptance of the suffering, and Zosima's teaching of shared duty. Real goodness comes from loving others in real ways, not from being devoted to ideas in a general way. This view says that duty is always your own. The person next to us is who we are responsible for, not all of humanity as a whole. Ideology tries to save the world by giving up on each person, by valuing each person. Compassion saves the world. Another theme that keeps coming up is that clever explanations can't calm the mind. In Dostoevsky's books, the ideological minds are often very smart, but that smartness can't take away their guilt. Others may be fooled by rationalizations, but they can't shut down the voice inside that says everyone is worthy of respect. Eventually, cleverness falls apart, revealing the cruelty it hid. This is the main reason why confession is so important in Dostoevsky's writing. Giving up your beliefs and taking back your duty is what it means to confess. That is, it means I hurt this person and can't make up an excuse by talking about something else. When someone confesses, the person becomes more important than the idea again. What do we learn from Dostoevsky's attack on ideology? It's a warning not to give in to the temptation of abstract ideas that make cruelty okay. It tells us to judge morals not by how much we love systems, but by how much we love people. Instead of daydreaming about saving the world, it's a call to show compassion in real life by feeding the hungry, forgiving the guilty, and listening to those who are suffering. In real life, this means being wary of any principle that tells us to hurt other people for the greater good. It means putting people ahead of projects and ideas ahead of neighbors. You have to remember that how devotedly you love those around you is what really shows how good you are, not how strongly you believe in an idea. Dostoevsky thought that the worst thing about dogma was that it made cruelty look like virtue. It makes us want to give up loving people for loving things that aren't people. The mind knows better though. No reason, no matter how good, can justify denying someone their respect. It may look like the road of compassion isn't as big as the dreams of ideology, but it is. It respects the person in front of us, fights all kinds of cruelty, and says that action-based love is the only real basis for fairness. Dostoevsky's advice is still very important. Watch out for ideas that make harm okay. Instead, choose the path of kindness, which is harder and more humble. Lesson 13. Envy corrodes the soul that carries it. Not many feelings are as bad for you as envy. While sadness and anger can be shared and spoken out loud, envy grows in silence. It makes the person who has it sick, changing how they see things and making them angry. Dostoevsky had an incredibly clear understanding of this destructive force. In many of his books, envy is shown to be both a private emotion and a spiritual illness that makes people lose sight of their own gifts, messes up relationships, and ends up killing the envier more than the admired. It's not often that envy comes out in the open. Most of the time, people don't even tell themselves that they dislike when someone else is successful or happy. Instead, envy shows up as judgment, cynicism, or a cold lack of interest. Envy grows in secret and feeds on similarities, as Dostoevsky shows. Envy shows up in the brothers Karamazov when Dmitri and Ivan are competing with each other. Each brother wants to be noticed, loved, and in charge, and they both envy what the other brother seems to have. This envy leads to mistrust and hatred, which makes it very hard for people to get along again. They see things more blurry the more they compare themselves to others. Dostoevsky says that envy makes people lose their hearts. It makes the good in other people look like threats instead of gifts. The person who is jealous turns angry because they see someone else's happiness as their own loss. Envy comes from wanting to be first, be different, or be better than other people. When pride bases its sense of self-worth on comparisons, envy is bound to happen. When other people do well, pride sees it as an insult. When other people get love, pride sees it as neglect. This relationship is shown by the underground man. He wishes he could live a normal, happy life, but his pride keeps him from saying it. He makes fun of how simple they are, while inwardly wanting their peace. His envy turns into anger, and he hurts relationships rather than deal with the shame of feeling less important. Dostoevsky shows through him how pride and envy feed off of each other, making things more bitter. It's clear from Dostoevsky that envy hurts not only relationships but also the person who has it. It eats away at the soul from the inside, making happiness impossible. They can't enjoy life as a gift because they are always compared. Gratitude fades, and anger grows. This is shown in Crime and Punishment. Raskolnikov's intellectual pride is mixed with jealousy. He doesn't like how average people are, and wishes they were more peaceful. His need to show that he is better drives him to commit crimes, but his envy keeps him from being happy. His inner pain shows how useless envy is. It offers meaning, but brings pain. Svidrigailov gives us another sad case. He is cynical because he wants to be as good and honest as other people. Instead of trying to be good, he wants to make people bad. Because of his envy, he can't be happy, which means he can't love. His life falls apart in the end, showing how envy destroys everything until nothing is left. What heals if envy hurts? Dostoevsky makes the case for being thankful. Gratitude changes the attention from comparing to receiving. Gratitude recognizes one's own gifts, instead of resenting someone else's. It doesn't see life as competition, but as plenty. This spirit is shown by characters like Alyosha Karamazov. Alyosha doesn't compare himself to other people. Relationships, commitments, and even pain are seen as chances to love him. Because he is thankful, he doesn't feel envious, so he can enjoy other people's wins. Dostoevsky doesn't see this as naive, but as grown and the result of being humble. Dostoevsky thought that gratitude was not an emotional sense of happiness, but a moral code. You have to choose to see good where envy sees danger. To know that every gift is a gift, you have to be humble. Dostoevsky says that another way to treat envy is to turn it into respect. When someone is good, envy feels bad, but respect learns from it. The person must be humble in order to make the change. Instead of expecting to be better than others, they must accept that others may be better in some ways and that this is not an insult, but an invitation. For instance, Sonia's moral strength could easily make people who are suffering feel envious, but people who approach her with humility get praise instead. They don't see her as a rival, but as a role model. In the end, Raskolnikov learns to admire Sonia's strength instead of enviously wanting it, and this respect helps him change. Dostoevsky's world sees respect as a way to grow, and envy as a way to stay bitter. Dostoevsky also thought that envy was a part of society. Fundamentalists and demons are envious of the wealth and power of the elites. Their envy makes them angry, which is okay to do violent things, but their movement doesn't free people. It hurts them. Dostoevsky says that communities become unstable when envy spreads to everyone. Ideologues can use social envy to turn your personal anger into political abuse. This doesn't mean Dostoevsky didn't care about social unfairness. He did. He cared a lot about the poor and the powerless. But he warned that envy can be bad for even good causes if it is not controlled. If you base social change on envy, you will get revenge instead of justice. So, what does Dostoevsky teach us about dislike? That it hurts the person who carries it more than the person it hates. That it keeps us from seeing our own skills and stops us from being happy. That thanks, humility, and admiration are the best ways to fight it. In real life, this means fighting the urge to always compare ourselves to other people. It means being thankful every day and naming your gifts instead of your complaints. It means learning from people we used to dislike and turning our dislike into respect. These habits turn the poison of envy into fuel for growth. Envy offers meaning, but brings bitterness instead. It breaks down our souls, messes up our connections, and keeps us from seeing happiness. Dostoevsky says that envy is one of the worst things that can happen to a person, not because it hurts the person who is admired, but because it eats away at the person who is envied. But he also shows how to move forward. Being thankful changes your viewpoint. Admiration makes it possible to learn. Being humble frees us from the power of comparison. So, the way to get over envy is not to have more, but to see what you already have.
Dostoevsky thought that the way to peace was not to be angry about other people's gifts, but to enjoy them and realize that life itself is a gift, even when it's hard.
Lesson 14. Forgiveness frees. Both sides forgiveness is one of the most important and tough ideas in Dostoevsky's work. He knew from experience how hard it is to let go of anger. Dostoevsky was hurt by being betrayed, jailed, and sent away, and his anger could have turned into hate. But his books show that he has a strong belief: forgiving frees both sides. While it doesn't erase the past, it does break the ties that hold both the victim and the offender together. If you don't forgive someone, they will stay angry and hurt. But if you do, you can help them heal, start over, and even be forgiven. At first, being unwilling to forgive feels strong. To hold on to anger is to hold on to a sense of what's right. It feels like extra defense against more harm. But Dostoevsky shows how holding on to grudges turns into a prison very quickly. The damage starts to take over the person's life. Instead of being free, the person who was hurt lives with the pain over and over again. Ivan's intellectual revolt against God in the Brothers Karamazov is partly caused by not being able to forgive. It's impossible for him to forgive a world that lets innocent people suffer, especially kids. He is tormented and can't find peace because he won't forget. Dostoevsky doesn't make fun of Ivan's moral anger. Instead, he shows how Ivan's refusal to forgive hurts his soul and leaves him alone and hopeless. Dostoevsky doesn't make forgiveness sound nice. He never says that it means ignoring crime or giving up on justice. It's not okay to forgive someone who has done something wrong in his world. When Raskolnikov admits to what he did, he will still be sent to Siberia as punishment. Forgiving him doesn't mean he doesn't have to face punishment. However, it changes justice from punishment to cleansing. Dostoevsky had a very important idea. Justice and forgiveness are not opposites. When you forgive someone, you are still responsible, but in a different way. Punishment without pardon makes people hopeless. If you forgive without taking responsibility, it turns into luxury. They make the chance of renewal possible when put together. Dostoevsky thought that forgiving someone wasn't just a feeling, but a choice. It's possible to wish someone well, even if you never feel good about them. To forgive someone is to choose not to let the hurt affect your future. It's an act of freedom that breaks the circle of revenge in crime and punishment. Sonia is a great example of this freedom. Even after Raskolnikov admits to killing someone, she still forgives him. She doesn't shield him from the crime or act like it's not a big deal. Still, she chooses to be by his side, to go with him into exile, and to hope that he can be saved. Forgiving him frees him from hopelessness and lets him start a new life. By forgiving Sonia shows that she is strong enough to love even when it would be easy to be angry. He connects forgiving to being humble in Dostoevsky. Pride sticks to anger and insists on being better than the offender. Being humble means admitting your own flaws, which makes room for others to grow. Elders of Sema teaches that everyone is responsible for everyone else. This is a very radical idea that makes it possible and important to forgive. If I'm part of the problem with the world, then I can't expect others to be great. Being humble doesn't mean denying real harm, but it does keep you from being too proud. Forgiveness is no longer a gift from a superior to an inferior. Instead, it is an exchange between two peers who are both flawed and need mercy. Though it doesn't always happen, Dostoevsky shows that forgiveness is necessary for it to happen. Without forgiving, there can be no reconciliation. Anger gets in the way of faith. Forgiveness makes it possible for people to get along again, even if it takes time. Dmitry Karamazov's desire to take punishment, even for a crime he didn't do, makes it possible for him and his brothers to get along again. His willingness to be humble and forgive keeps anger from ruining what's left of their broken family. Dostoevsky says that forgiving someone starts the slow process of fixing relationships, even if it's not possible to make things right completely. For Dostoevsky, forgiving someone is a spiritual act at its core. He thought that people could forgive because God alone could forgive them. Divine kindness makes it possible for people to be merciful. Sonya's faith is tied to her acceptance of Raskolnikov. She forgives because she has been forgiven herself. Elder Zosima says that when you pray for other people, you learn to forgive them more. In this view, forgiving someone is more than just feeling better. It means being a part of a divine world where kindness wins over harshness. Forgiving others is like being in line with God's heart, who doesn't give up on people even though they mess up. Dostoevsky never downplays how much it costs to forgive. It hurts, makes you look bad, and sometimes it's unbearable. It means going over the hurt again instead of hiding it. It means letting go of the need for revenge, which feels like giving up power. Forgiving someone takes a lot of strength, because it means letting down your guard when it feels safer to keep it up. Dostoevsky, on the other hand, says it's worth the price. Forgiving someone may feel like giving up, but it's actually a win, a victory of freedom over anger, of love over hate. Forgiving someone doesn't erase the hurt, it turns it into a source of kindness. Forgiving someone also sets them free. Without it, shame can be unbearable and make you feel hopeless. In this way, the criminal can take responsibility without being defined by their mistake forever, because Sonia forgives Raskolnikov first. He is able to admit her ability to forgive him gives him hope that telling the truth won't lead to total rejection. Dostoevsky had a deep insight. Forgiving someone makes it possible for them to be saved. Forgiving someone also sets them free. To refuse to forgive is to stay tied to the person who hurt you, to the past. That chain is broken when you forgive. The victim can live their life without being ruled by anger. By forgiving Raskolnikov, Sonia shows that she won't let his crime control her future. Her kind deed makes her feel strong and worthy. In this way, forgiveness isn't just for the person who did wrong. It's also for the person who forgives. It's the choice to leave the jail of anger and enter the freedom of love. How can we learn to accept from Dostoevsky? It is hard, expensive, and goes against what you might think, but it is also freeing. That it changes justice, not gets rid of it. That it sets both the criminal and the victim free. And that it is the only real way to stop cycles of anger and payback. In real life, this means realizing that forgiving someone is a choice, not an emotion. It means not holding on to anger, even when it's right. It means being humble and accepting that we need to be forgiven. It also means believing that forgiveness, no matter how hard it is, can heal what anger can't. For Dostoevsky, forgiving someone is not just a sign of hope. People can do the hardest and most powerful thing they can think of. It sets both the wrongdoer and the victim free from hopelessness and anger. It changes punishment into forgiveness. It breaks the ties of the past and makes room for a new future. In a world where mean things often lead to more mean things, Dostoevsky has the guts to say that forgiveness sets everyone free, and that freedom is what gives people hope. Lesson 15. Children reveal. What adults forget, children show up a lot in Dostoevsky's books, and they usually show up at the most important times. They are not background features or ornaments that make you feel good. Because adults are so proud and cynical, they lose touch with something important. For Dostoevsky, children stand for purity, trust, awe, and the ability to freely give and receive love. The moral state of society can be seen in how people treat children. Children show truths that adults would rather not see because they are innocent and open. They help us remember things we've forgotten. Ivan Karamazov's refusal to obey God in The Brothers Karamazov is one of the most troubling parts of Dostoevsky's writing. Ivan gives horrible examples of how adults have hurt children by abusing, neglecting, or being cruel to them. He says that no amount of future peace or reason could ever make this kind of suffering okay. Ivan's protest unintentionally backs up one of Dostoevsky's strongest beliefs. Children are the best way to judge morality. The way adults treat the weak shows what kind of person they really are, not what they say they are, because of belief, pride, or money. Dostoevsky says that a society has lost its soul if it hurts or ignores children. In Dostoevsky's stories, kids often trust without being asked, which is very different from how adults usually act. In Crime and Punishment, the Marmalado of children hold on to their faith in Sonia's love, even though they are poor and feel ashamed. Their purity shines through the family's sadness and gives us a glimpse of something pure. This innocence is not just not knowing anything. To accept and believe in goodness without being skeptical is a natural trait. Adults who have been hurt often think that this kind of faith is naive. Dostoevsky, on the other hand, sees it as a form of wisdom, a warning that love and faith are not stupid but essential. Dostoevsky shows over and over how the sight of a child cuts through an adult's lie about themselves. When a figure who is guilty looks into the eyes of a child, their excuses fall apart. Children see clearly, without theory or pride getting in the way. Raskolnikov, for example, gets scared when he sees kids on the street. Their innocence makes him see his crime not as a test of his mind, but as an attack on life itself. The sight of children stirs up his deep-seated guilt. This is one way that children serve as moral models. They show people the real person they are, whether they are kind, careless, or dishonest. Dostoevsky also shows children as happy things. In The Brothers Karamazov, Alyosha hangs out with a group of schoolboys and makes friends with them while they fight and are sad. These exchanges make up some of the most touching parts of the book. The boys' play, loyalty, and willingness to forgive make the room genuinely joyful, which many of the adult characters fail to do. In these scenes, Dostoevsky shows that happiness is not childish but necessary. Adults forget how to enjoy small things because they are too busy being proud and ambitious. Kids show them that happiness doesn't come from power or money, but from being with friends and having fun. Dostoevsky does not, however, paint a perfect picture of youth. He shows kids who are really hurting because they are poor, neglected, or treated badly because they don't deserve it. Their pain is often more upsetting than adult pain. Their pain is terrible because they are innocent. This theme makes his point that society is judged by how it treats its weakest people even stronger. Exploiting or ignoring children is the worst thing that can happen in a community. In The Brothers Karamazov, Alyosha and his friends think a lot about life after the death of the boy Alyosha. The group is brought together by the boy's pain and death, which reminds them of love, loyalty, and the hope of endless life. In this way, the pain of children, while sad, becomes enlightening. It tells people they need to change, be kind, and take responsibility. Dostoevsky often talks about mental renewal in terms of getting back to being a child. Becoming like a child does not mean going back to being a kid. It means getting back to trusting, being humble, and being open to love. This spirit lives in Alyosha. He is smart and caring, but what makes him strong is his young heart. Without doubt, he trusts, forgives, and loves. Others feel weaker when he's around because he reminds them of what they've lost. Elder Zosima also says that to grow spiritually, you have to become like a child, innocent, not because you don't know any better, but because you are consciously humble. Unless you become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven, said the Bible. And this is a reflection of that. He thinks that children show the kind of heart posture that is needed for real trust. So what do kids really make us think of? Among other things, Dostoevsky suggests being able to trust. Adults often become suspicious and think everyone is out to get them. Kids show us that we can trust each other, how important happiness is. Adults want to be successful and forget to enjoy small things. Kids show us that being present and playing make us happy. Why humility is important. Adults want to be better than others, but kids are okay with being dependent. Being humble is what love is built on. The truth about being responsible. The vulnerability of children makes adults remember their job. It is not a choice to care for the weak. It is morally necessary. To sum up, kids remind us of what it means to be human. Love that is freely given and freely accepted. What does this mean for us? Dostoevsky's lesson is about both individuals and groups. As individuals, it is difficult to regain childlike traits like confidence,
joy, and humility without becoming too immature. It tells us to let go of pride and negativity and instead embrace openness and wonder. Socially, it tells us to judge fairness by how people treat children. Communities, systems, and policies should be judged on how well they care for and protect children. Dostoevsky says that a society that doesn't care about children loses its soul. Dostoevsky doesn't see children as sentimental symbols. He sees them as live revelations. Their innocence shows how bad adults are. Their happiness makes us remember what's important. Their pain makes us take responsibility. And being around them brings back traits we forget all too quickly. Seeing kids the right way helps you remember what it means to be human. To forget about them or hurt them is to betray that humanity. Dostoevsky thought that children could remember things that adults had forgotten, and by remembering, we could find our way back to love, faith, and hope.
Lesson 16. Power tempts, then deforms. One of the most exciting things about life is power. It offers safety, identification, and command. But Dostoevsky warns that power changes people even after they've tasted it. For the sake of ambition, it boosts ego, dulls compassion, and bends morals. In all of his books, the characters follow the same sad path. Power first tempts, then changes them. It's easy for power to serve others to turn into dominance for personal gain. Dostoevsky thought that power was dangerous, not only because it could be abused, but also because it could change even the best goals. No one is safe. As soon as we think we are not responsible for anything, we start the slow distortion process. Power is alluring because it speaks to deep needs for meaning and independence. To feel strong is to understand how to make things happen. Dostoevsky knew this attraction very well. His characters often want power, but not just in politics or money. They also want power in their minds, their relationships, or their impact. In The Brothers Karamazov, the dishonest father, Fyodor Karamazov, enjoys his small amount of power over his family. His power isn't very strong, but it lets him control, humiliate, and influence others. He likes being in charge for its own sake, which turns partnerships into battles of will. This small-scale tyranny shows how power really works. It gives you the thrill of being better than other people. One of Dostoevsky's most insightful ideas is that power makes people feel like they are above the law. The strong start to think that rules only apply to other people and not to them. This urge is shown in Raskolnikov's idea of extraordinary men. He says that some people, like Napoleon, are allowed to break moral rules in order to make progress. He says he is not subject to the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," by putting himself in this group. But the fantasy falls apart. Instead of setting him free, his claimed exemption makes him feel guilty and hopeless. Dostoevsky says that no one is really safe. Power that says it is better only shows how bad it is. As power grows, it starts to change the soul. Empathy gets weaker because it seems pointless when other people are there to help. When pride grows, it becomes impossible to accept advice. Self-deception goes unchecked because people are less accountable. In Demons, Pyotr Verkovensky uses charm and trickery to control other people because he is sure that his vision for a better world excuses being cruel. But as his power grows, he stops being human. Violence turns into a plan. Relationships turn into tools, and the truth stops being important. The change is complete. His desire for power has eaten away at who he is. Dostoevsky paints a terrifying picture of this path. Power starts by making the ego happy, but it ends by hollowing out the self. People with power often wear masks of kindness. Leaders tell themselves that being in charge is for the greater good. The most well-known example is the Grand Inquisitor in The Brothers Karamazov. He tells Christ that people can't handle real freedom and that they need to be ruled by power, wonders, and bread. He says that his power is good because it saves people from the pain of choosing, but his logic shows how corrupt he really is. He says he cares as an excuse to take control. He takes away the honor of humanity by saying he wants to protect it. Dostoevsky shows this lie for what it is. Kindness without freedom is oppression, dressed up as love. On top of that, Dostoevsky says that power is not just political or structural. It shows up in homes, in friendships, and in private interactions. Parents may control their kids, spouses may take advantage of their partners, and smart people may put down people with less schooling. For example, the underground man shows his power by making fun of a woman he has paid, trying to show that he is better by being mean, even though he doesn't have a lot of political power. The way he uses it shows the same distortion, the desire to show off at the cost of others. In this way, Dostoevsky makes the message applicable to everyone. Power isn't just for kings and generals. Every person's heart wants to abuse the power it has. How can power be kept in check? If it always tempts, Dostoevsky says that responsibility is the safety net. The idea of being exempt is checked by communities, customs, and conscience. Leaders who are willing to be corrected and stay in touch with others can fight distortion. This is why confession and being humble are such important themes in his books. These are activities that hurt pride and bring things back into perspective. Power grows uncontrolled without them. They make it possible to use power for service instead of power itself. Dostoevsky doesn't say that power is bad. When used to help other people, authority can be useful and even important. For instance, Alusha has power not through dominance, but through love. Instead of force, his power comes from being humble and caring. People trust him because he wants what's best for them, not himself. This shows Dostoevsky's ideal. Power is right when it helps, but wrong when it wants to be helped. It is not deformation, but vocation to be in a position of authority that defends, teaches, and heals. It's dangerous to forget this difference. Dostoevsky connects power to the spiritual sin of pride at the deepest level. The desire to be in charge and the refusal to serve are similar to the first rebellion against God. When power is separated from humility, it turns into evil. On the other hand, being ready to serve shows that God loves us. Every time someone uses their power, it's like a spiritual test. Will it be used to boost your own self-esteem or to help others? The answer decides whether power changes things for the worse or for the better. What does Dostoevsky teach us about having power? That it always makes you want more, even in small amounts. It deforms when there is no reason for it to. That it hides as kindness while keeping pride alive, and that service is the only right way to show it. In real life, this means looking at how we use power every day. Do we take over talks or just listen? Do we control relationships or care for them? Do we want to be in charge for our own reasons or to help other people? These questions show us the sneaky ways that power can tempt us and urge us to be humble. Power says it will give you freedom and meaning, but Dostoevsky shows the evil side of it. It tempts, then changes you. If nothing is done about it, it isolates, corrupts, and kills. However, power that is used for service is the real form of strength. Every day, we can choose whether to let power feed our pride or our love. The message is clear for Dostoevsky. Corruption is when someone in power demands that you serve them. Redemption comes from authority that serves. Power will tempt you, but being humble will save you. Lesson 17. Compassion is a discipline. When people think of compassion, they often imagine a spontaneous feeling, an emotional response to someone else's pain. But Dostoevsky treats compassion differently. For him, compassion is not merely an impulse or sentiment. It is a discipline, a deliberate practice of attention, patience, and presence. Sentiment alone, however genuine, is unreliable. It rises and fades with moods, circumstances, or convenience. Discipline, by contrast, trains the heart to remain with others in their suffering, even when feelings falter. In Dostoevsky's vision, compassion must be cultivated through habit, humility, and endurance. Dostoevsky draws a sharp distinction between pity and compassion. Pity is fleeting and often condescending. It positions the one who feels it above the sufferer. How unfortunate you are. How fortunate I am not to be like you. Compassion, by contrast, descends into the suffering itself. It shares the burden rather than merely observing it. Sonia, in Crime and Punishment, embodies this difference. Many pity her for her poverty and humiliation, but they do so from a distance, maintaining superiority. Sonia, however, practices compassion toward Raskolnikov. She does not look down on him, but chooses to enter into his torment. She weeps with him, forgives him, and follows him into exile. Her compassion is not sentimental but active, sustained through suffering, because compassion is not natural for most of us. Dostoevsky insists it must be trained. Elder Zosima in The Brothers Karamazov teaches that one must deliberately practice active love, concrete acts of kindness, service, and patience. These actions shape the heart over time, building the capacity for genuine compassion. Just as a musician becomes skilled through daily practice, so a person becomes compassionate through repeated exercises of attention, listening when it is inconvenient, forgiving when pride resists, serving when no one notices. Compassion grows through discipline. Compassion is costly because it requires presence in suffering. To truly be with another in pain is uncomfortable. It means resisting the urge to fix quickly, to flee, or to turn away. Dostoevsky shows that compassion demands patience, the willingness to remain even when solutions are not possible. In The House of the Dead, Dostoevsky describes how prisoners would sometimes sit quietly with one another in grief. No speeches, no advice, just presence. This simple act of solidarity provided more comfort than words. Compassion here is not dramatic, but steady, requiring the discipline to endure another's pain without fleeing. Dostoevsky warns that without compassion, morality turns harsh. Rules applied without love become weapons. Ivan Karamazov's intellectual arguments about justice, though logical, lack compassion. They clarify ideas, but do not console the suffering. Alyosha, by contrast, approaches others with compassion first, judgment second. His presence comforts more than arguments ever could. Compassion prevents morality from becoming sterile. It humanizes principles by anchoring them in love. Discipline is required because moralism is easier than compassion. It is simpler to quote rules than to sit with another's wounds. Compassion demands more. At the heart of compassion lies humility. To be compassionate, one must admit that they too are fragile and wounded. Pride resists compassion because pride fears contamination by weakness. Humility embraces shared humanity, making solidarity possible. Elder Zosima teaches that each person is responsible for all. This radical humility expands compassion beyond personal sympathy into universal responsibility. It trains the heart to see every person's suffering as somehow one's own. Dostoevsky emphasizes that compassion is not sentimental excess, but steadiness. It is not about dramatic emotions, but about reliable presence. Compassionate characters are those who can act calmly in crisis, who are not overwhelmed by another's suffering, but strengthened by the chance to serve. Alyosha demonstrates this steadiness with the group of schoolboys after Ilyusha's death. He does not drown in their grief, but guides them with tenderness, teaching them to remember their friend with loyalty and hope. His compassion is disciplined enough to give stability rather than collapse under emotion. True compassion cannot be coerced. Forced charity or obligatory kindness lacks dignity. Compassion must be chosen freely, again and again. This freedom makes compassion vulnerable. It can be refused, ignored, or betrayed. Yet this same freedom makes it sacred. Compassion given voluntarily carries transformative power. Sonia's choice to stand by Raskolnikov illustrates this. No law or obligation compels her. She chooses freely to share his burden. That freedom gives her compassion, redemptive force. Dostoevsky also portrays compassion as a form of resistance against cruelty. In environments where brutality is normalized, whether prisons, households, or political movements, compassion disrupts the cycle. It refuses to treat people as objects and insists on their humanity. In Demons, where ideology justifies violence, compassion is the counterforce. It exposes the inhumanity of cruelty by responding with mercy. Compassion resists by insisting that no cause can erase personal dignity. What does Dostoevsky teach us about compassion? That it is not a passing feeling but a discipline. That pity is not enough. Real compassion requires presence, that it is costly, requiring humility, patience, and steadiness, that it prevents morality from becoming cruel and society from becoming inhuman. Practically, this means cultivating compassion as habit. It means choosing daily acts of kindness, resisting the urge to withdraw from others' pain, and seeing humility as the foundation of love. It means remembering that compassion is not measured by intensity of feeling, but by reliability of action. For Dostoevsky, compassion is not soft sentiment, but hard discipline. It is the daily choice to bear another's burden, to sit with their pain, to love when it costs. It requires humility, patience, and freedom, but it is also the most powerful antidote to cruelty and despair. Sentiment alone fades, discipline endures, and in that endurance, Dostoevsky finds the heart of compassion, not fleeting pity, but steadfast love strong enough to save. Lesson 18. The underground of the heart is real. Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground is one of the strangest and most unsettling works in modern literature. It introduces us to the underground man, a bitter narrator who speaks with scorn, contradiction, and defiance. His rambling monologues are often shocking, even absurd, but they reveal something Dostoevsky believed was deeply true. Within every human being lies an underground, a hidden realm of irrationality, pride, rebellion, and contradiction. The underground of the heart is real. It resists simple explanation, defies rational calculation, and refuses to be tamed by systems or theories. Dostoevsky's insight is that no matter how sophisticated our plans or how enlightened our ideals, there remains within the human soul a stubborn, irrational core. Ignoring it leads to disaster. Facing it is the beginning of wisdom. In Dostoevsky's time, many intellectuals believed human behavior could be predicted and managed scientifically. If only we apply reason, education, and social engineering, they argued, people will act in their own best interests. The underground man ridicules this optimism. He insists that people will deliberately act against their interests just to prove they are free. His famous declaration, 2 times 2 is 4, but I prefer 2 times 2 is 5, captures this rebellion. He refuses to be reduced to a predictable equation. His irrationality, though destructive, asserts his humanity. For Dostoevsky, this paradox is central. Human beings would rather suffer and destroy themselves than surrender their freedom to mechanical rationalism. The underground represents the contradictions of the human heart. We desire love, yet push people away. We long for freedom, yet fear its consequences. We want to be good, yet are drawn to evil. Rational systems cannot resolve these contradictions because they are not problems to be solved, but realities to be lived. The underground man embodies this conflict. He despises society, yet yearns for its approval. He ridicules intimacy, yet longs for connection. He sabotages relationships, then despises himself for loneliness. His contradictions make him miserable, but they also reveal the irreducible depth of the human heart. One of Dostoevsky's most radical claims is that true freedom includes the freedom to be irrational. If freedom only means choosing what is rational or beneficial, then it is not real freedom, but calculation. The underground insists on freedom, even when it leads to self-destruction. This is why the underground man resists utopian visions of perfect societies. In a world where everyone behaves rationally for the collective good, he insists people would rebel simply to prove their autonomy. Freedom is not predictable, and any system that denies this will collapse. Dostoevsky here anticipates later critiques of social engineering, psychology, and even technology. Human beings cannot be reduced to algorithms. The underground of the heart will always resist control, but the underground is not only about freedom, it is also about darkness. Dostoevsky knew that human beings harbor destructive impulses: envy, cruelty, pride, and spite. The underground man admits he sometimes delights in his own humiliation, nurturing bitterness rather than seeking healing. This self-destructive tendency is deeply unsettling, yet Dostoevsky insists it is real. To ignore it is to misunderstand human nature. The underground exposes the shadow side of the heart, the capacity to choose harm, even against one's own interest. For Dostoevsky, the greatest danger is not the underground itself, but denying its existence. Ideologies that assume human beings are purely rational or purely good collapse when confronted with reality. Political revolutions that promised liberation often produced terror because they ignored the depths of human pride and cruelty. In Demons, radicals believe their ideology will usher in a rational paradise. Instead, their refusal to reckon with the underground leads to chaos and violence. Dostoevsky warns that any system that denies the irrational depths of the heart is doomed to fail. Yet Dostoevsky does not portray the underground only as despair. Paradoxically, honesty about the underground can be the beginning of wisdom. To acknowledge our irrational impulses, our pride, and our contradictions is to see ourselves truthfully. The underground man, though bitter, is at least brutally honest. His self-exposure, however grotesque, prevents him from hiding behind illusions. This honesty is painful, but necessary. Denying the underground leads to shallow optimism. Facing it opens the possibility of transformation. Dostoevsky's ultimate hope is that grace can reach even into the underground. No darkness is so deep that it lies beyond redemption. Raskolnikov, even, and other tormented characters reveal the underground of guilt, doubt, and pride. Yet confession, love, and forgiveness break through even there. The underground may be real, but it is not final. Its exposure can prepare the heart to receive mercy. Dostoevsky suggests that acknowledging our irrational depths makes us more open to grace because we see that we cannot save ourselves by reason alone. What does Dostoevsky teach us about the underground of the heart? That it is real, irrational, and unavoidable. That denying it leads to disaster, while facing it leads to honesty. That true freedom includes the capacity to choose against reason, and that even the darkest underground is not beyond redemption. Practically, this means resisting the temptation to explain human behavior only in rational terms. It means being honest about our own contradictions and destructive impulses. It means cultivating humility, recognizing that we are not fully in control of ourselves, and that we need grace, love, and community to live well. The underground of the heart is real. It rebels against systems, resists control, and harbors contradictions that reason cannot resolve. Dostoevsky does not invite us to celebrate this darkness, but to face it honestly. For only in facing it can we discover freedom, humility, and the possibility of grace. In the end, the underground is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be acknowledged. It reminds us that human beings are more mysterious, more free, and more fragile than any theory can capture. And in that mystery lies both danger and hope. Lesson 19. Redemption remains possible. If one theme unites Dostoevsky's sprawling novels, it is this: no person is beyond redemption. However dark their crimes, however lost their soul, however hopeless their condition may seem, change remains possible. This conviction runs through his characters, his theology, and even his own life. Arrested, sentenced to death, and reprieved only at the last moment, Dostoevsky knew how close a human being can come to despair. Yet his works insist that redemption, though costly, is always within reach. For Dostoevsky, redemption is not denial of guilt or erasure of the past. It is transformation through confession, responsibility, and love. The scar remains, but it no longer defines. His vision of redemption is stubbornly realistic, painful, humiliating, gradual, but real. Perhaps the most famous example is Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. He commits murder under the illusion of a superior theory, believing himself above morality. Yet guilt torments him, unraveling his pride. For hundreds of pages, he resists confession, trying to justify himself. But eventually, through Sonia's compassion, he finds the strength to admit the truth. His redemption is not immediate. Siberian exile awaits him, and he must bear punishment. But confession opens the door to transformation. In the novel's epilogue, Dostoevsky hints at a rebirth. Raskolnikov, once consumed by pride, begins to discover humility and faith. The point is not that his crime is erased, but that his humanity is restored. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dmitri is wrongly accused of patricide. Yet instead of raging endlessly against injustice, he begins to accept his punishment as purification. His willingness to bear suffering, even undeserved, becomes a form of redemption. He moves from reckless indulgence to a deeper sense of responsibility and solidarity with others who suffer. Dostoevsky portrays Dmitri's transformation as imperfect but genuine. Redemption here does not mean vindication, but moral growth through acceptance. Dmitri becomes freer, even in prison, than he was when pursuing pleasure without restraint. Over and over, Dostoevsky shows that redemption happens not in isolation but through love. Sonia's compassion redeems Raskolnikov. Alyosha's kindness redeems the bitter schoolboys after Ilyusha's death. Even hardened prisoners in the House of the Dead find glimpses of redemption through small acts of solidarity. Love makes redemption possible because it refuses to define people by their worst acts. It sees the whole person, the possibility of change, the image of God that cannot be erased. This love does not excuse evil, but insists that evil is not the last word. Dostoevsky never pretends that redemption is easy. It requires confession, repentance, and often great suffering. Pride must be broken. Illusions must be shattered. Punishment must be endured. This is why his novels often end, not with triumph, but with painful new beginnings. Redemption is less a conclusion than a process. It is a journey of transformation, not a quick escape from consequences. Dostoevsky's realism makes his vision of redemption credible. It acknowledges that scars remain, yet insists that scars can become signs of healing rather than of ruin. Some characters refuse this possibility. Svidrigaïlov, for example, confronted with his corruption, chooses suicide rather than repentance. His refusal is not inevitable. It is a choice. Dostoevsky portrays this as the great tragedy. Redemption is possible, but not forced. Freedom remains. To reject redemption is to remain in despair by choice. This refusal highlights the stakes. Redemption is not automatic. It must be accepted freely, often through humility and confession. Dostoevsky suggests that the door of redemption is always open, but some choose not to walk through it. For Dostoevsky, redemption is not limited to individuals, but extends to humanity as a whole. His novels suggest that societies, too, can be renewed when they turn from pride and cruelty toward compassion and responsibility. This conviction arises from his Christian faith that divine mercy is greater than human sin, and that resurrection is possible even after apparent defeat. Redemption, for Dostoevsky, is not just personal but cosmic, the renewal of all creation. Yet it begins with individual choices, a confession, a gesture of forgiveness, a willingness to love. The theme of redemption keeps hope alive in Dostoevsky's darkest stories. Without it, his novels would be unbearable. The crimes are too brutal, the suffering too intense. But Dostoevsky refuses despair. He insists that as long as life continues, as long as freedom remains, redemption is possible. This hope does not deny evil. It faces evil honestly, but insists that love and mercy are stronger. Even in the underground of the heart, even in prison camps, even in murder and betrayal, redemption remains possible. What does Dostoevsky teach us about redemption? That no person should be written off as beyond hope. That confession and responsibility are the first steps toward healing. That redemption often requires suffering, but suffering can purify rather than destroy. That love from others is essential, for no one redeems themselves alone. Practically, this means resisting cynicism about people who seem irredeemable. It means creating spaces for confession and reconciliation. It means offering compassion without excusing evil and holding on to hope, even when change seems impossible. For Dostoevsky, redemption is the stubborn truth at the heart of human life. No matter how far we fall, we can turn back. Pride, guilt, and despair may delay it, but the possibility remains. Redemption is not cheap. It demands humility, suffering, and love, but it is real, and it is stronger than despair. In a world quick to condemn and slow to forgive, Dostoevsky's vision is radical. He dares to say that redemption remains possible. For Raskolnikov, for Dmitri, for convicts in Siberia, for every human soul, and in that daring, he offers not only a theme for novels but a hope for life itself. Lesson 20. Truth unites thought and life. To Dostoevsky, truth is not just an abstract idea or a matter of intellectual agreement. Truth is lived. It unites what we think with how we act, what we believe with how we live. To speak or affirm truth, but live in contradiction, is to divide the self, to fracture one's integrity. Conversely, to live in truth, even when it is costly, creates inner wholeness and peace. For Dostoevsky, truth is not merely a matter of philosophy, it is a way of life. Dostoevsky's characters who refuse to live in truth suffer fragmentation. They construct public personas at odds with their private reality. They speak one way and act another. This double life produces torment, not freedom. Raskolnikov, in Crime and Punishment, insists on his theory of extraordinary individuals, but his actions betray the falsity of his thought. He claims murder can be justified, yet after committing it, he cannot live with himself. His divided life, thought on one side, reality on the other, tears him apart. His mind argues one thing, his conscience insists on another. Until he confesses, he cannot find peace. Dostoevsky's lesson is clear. To live in contradiction to truth is to live divided, restless, and disintegrated. The opposite of this division is integration, when thought and life align. When what one believes is what one lives, truth brings unity of self. A person whose yes means yes, and whose no means no experiences an inner integrity that cannot be manufactured through cleverness or pretense. Elder Zosima, in The Brothers Karamazov, exemplifies this unity. He teaches what he lives and lives what he teaches. His humility, patience, and compassion are not theories but practices. Because his thought and life are united, he radiates peace and authenticity. Others trust him, not because of rhetoric, but because of integrity. For Dostoevsky, this is the mark of truth. It integrates rather than fragments, heals rather than divides. One of Dostoevsky's sharpest critiques is reserved for half-truths, statements or ideas that contain some accuracy but are not lived consistently. Half-truths deceive, not only others, but also the self. They allow people to feel virtuous while evading responsibility. Ivan Karamazov's intellectual rebellion against God illustrates this. His protest against innocent suffering is genuine, but he does not carry his logic into his own life. He condemns cruelty in theory, but fails to practice compassion in action. The half-truth leaves him tormented. He cannot deny the validity of his outrage, yet he cannot integrate it into lived love. Dostoevsky suggests that half-truths are more dangerous than outright lies because they seem respectable. They allow people to live in illusion while convincing themselves they are living in truth. For Dostoevsky, confession is the act that restores unity between thought and life. To confess is to name reality honestly, to align words with deeds. It closes the gap between who we pretend to be and who we are. When Raskolnikov finally confesses, he unites thought and life. His speech matches his action. His honesty, however humiliating, restores integrity. This is why confession is liberating. It is the moment when truth reclaims its place at the center of a divided life. Dostoevsky also links truth with freedom. Lies enslave because they require constant maintenance. A divided life forces the liar to construct alibis, sustain illusions, and manage appearances. Truth, by contrast, frees because it requires no performance. To live in truth is to be whole, unburdened by pretense. This freedom is not easy. It may cost reputation, comfort, or even safety. Yet Dostoevsky insists it is the only real freedom. Anything else is slavery to illusion. Truth also unites relationships. Lies isolate, creating distance between people. When someone hides behind deception, others cannot know them fully. Truthful speech, even when difficult, makes intimacy possible. Alyosha's role in The Brothers Karamazov demonstrates this. His honesty and openness create trust among the schoolboys he befriends. Even when delivering hard words, he speaks plainly, and this plainness allows reconciliation. Dostoevsky suggests that communities thrive when grounded in truth. Without it, they collapse into suspicion and manipulation. For Dostoevsky, truth is not merely factual accuracy. It is rooted in the deepest reality of existence: God, conscience, and love. To live in truth is to align one's life with these realities. To deny them is to fracture the soul. This is why he treats faith not as blind belief, but as fidelity to truth. Sonia's faith is not abstract doctrine, but embodied love. Her actions reveal her belief. She unites thought and life in a way that transforms others. Faith divorced from life is hypocrisy. Faith lived in truth is redemption. Living in truth is costly. It may require confession of guilt, forgiveness of enemies, or sacrifice of ambition. It strips away illusions of control and forces humility. Yet Dostoevsky insists that the cost is worth it. Better to suffer honestly than to prosper in lies. Characters who cling to illusion, Svidrielv, the underground man, end in despair. Those who embrace truth, however painful, discover freedom and even joy. The pattern is consistent. Lies destroy, truth heals. What does Dostoevsky teach us about truth? That it unites thought and life, mind and conscience. That half-truths are dangerous illusions. That confession restores integrity. That lies enslave, while truth frees. Practically, this means speaking honestly, admitting faults, keeping promises, and living consistently with our convictions. It means resisting the temptation to justify contradictions. It means pursuing integrity even when costly, trusting that truth brings wholeness. For Dostoevsky, truth is not a mere idea, but a way of being. It unites thought and life, dissolves fragmentation, and restores freedom. Lies may offer temporary escape, but they fracture the self. Truth, though painful, heals. To live in truth is to live whole. It is to let words and deeds match, to align conscience with action, to walk in integrity. In Dostoevsky's vision, truth is not abstract philosophy. It is the lifeblood of a human soul. Only in truth does thought find peace, life find meaning, and freedom find its foundation. Lesson 21. Small acts change destinies. Dostoevsky's novels often wrestle with immense themes: crime, guilt, suffering, redemption, and the fate of humanity. Yet within these sweeping dramas, he continually highlights something deceptively simple: the transformative power of small acts. A coin given to a beggar, a kind word to a stranger, a refusal to retaliate. These moments, seemingly insignificant, alter the course of characters' lives. For Dostoevsky, destinies are not shaped only by grand decisions or revolutionary acts, but by the humble, everyday gestures that plant seeds of love, forgiveness, or hope. Many of Dostoevsky's characters are tempted by dreams of grand gestures. They imagine themselves capable of extraordinary deeds, acts of sacrifice or genius that will change the world. Yet when confronted with the small, unglamorous demands of daily life, they falter. Elder Zosima, in The Brothers Karamazov, warns against this delusion. Love in dreams, he says, is attractive because it is dramatic and exalted, but real love is shown in small, patient acts. This is Dostoevsky's critique. Waiting for the chance to perform some heroic act blinds us to the opportunities for love already before us. We may never be called to save the world, but we are always called to small acts of kindness. And in Dostoevsky's vision, those small acts are what truly shape destinies. Sonia in Crime and Punishment demonstrates this principle powerfully. She does not deliver speeches or lead movements. She performs simple, steady acts of compassion. She reads scripture to Raskolnikov. She sits silently with him in his guilt. She chooses to accompany him into exile. These acts seem small compared to the drama of murder and punishment, yet they become decisive. They break through Raskolnikov's pride, awaken his conscience, and open the door to redemption. Without Sonia's ordinary faithfulness, Raskolnikov might never have confessed. Her small acts changed his destiny. In The Brothers Karamazov, Alyosha's interactions with a group of schoolboys offer another example. He comforts them after the death of their friend, Alyosha, reminding them to honor his memory and remain loyal to one another. His words are not grand or philosophical. They are simple encouragements, spoken with sincerity. Yet these small gestures unite the boys, giving them hope and direction. Dostoevsky ends the novel, not with a grand resolution, but with this moment of solidarity among children. In their promise to remember Alyosha, we see how small acts ripple into the future. For Dostoevsky, small acts are especially powerful against despair. When a person is consumed by guilt, suffering, or loneliness, they do not need grand theories. They need presence, a gesture of care, a reminder that they are not alone. In The House of the Dead, Dostoevsky recalls moments in prison when a fellow convict shared food, told a story, or offered a smile. These small mercies did not remove suffering, but they made it bearable. They kept hope alive. In places of despair, even the smallest act of kindness shines with disproportionate brightness. Another reason small acts matter is that they ripple outward. A single gesture can inspire further acts, setting off a chain of influence. Alyosha's kindness to the schoolboys strengthens their loyalty to one another. Sonia's faithfulness inspires Raskolnikov's confession, which may inspire others in turn. Dostoevsky understood that human lives are interconnected. No act is isolated. Even hidden kindnesses reverberate in ways unseen. Conversely, small acts of cruelty or neglect can also shape destinies, breeding bitterness or despair. For Dostoevsky, nothing is trivial. Every choice carries weight. Paradoxically, small acts are often harder than grand gestures. Grand gestures come with recognition and drama. Small acts demand patience, humility, and perseverance without applause. It is easier to imagine sacrificing one's life heroically than to endure a neighbor's insults with patience every day. Dostoevsky insists that real love is measured by these ordinary tests: forgiving repeatedly, listening attentively, showing up consistently. These are harder than dreams of heroism because they require daily discipline. Small acts demand constancy, not spectacle. Pride resists small acts because pride desires greatness. Pride wants to be exceptional, remembered, admired. Humility accepts the hiddenness of ordinary kindness. Sonia's humility allows her to serve without recognition. Alyosha's humility allows him to care for children instead of seeking intellectual glory like his brother Ivan. For Dostoevsky, humility is the soil where small acts flourish. Pride may dream of greatness, but neglect the neighbor in need. Humility bends low enough to see the face before us. Beyond their social impact, Dostoevsky presents small acts as spiritual discipline. They train the soul to love. Each act of patience, forgiveness, or service shapes the heart toward compassion. Just as habits form character, Small acts of love form holiness. This is why Zosima emphasizes active love. Love in dreams remains self-centered. Active love, practiced daily, purifies the soul. In this way, small acts are not only about helping others, they are about becoming more fully human. What do Dostoevsky's novels teach us about small acts? That they are not trivial, but decisive. That destinies are shaped more by daily choices than by dramatic gestures. That kindness, presence, and humility, repeated steadily, change lives in ways we cannot always see. Practically, this means paying attention to opportunities for small love, listening when someone needs to speak, forgiving when resentment tempts us, offering encouragement when hope falters. It means resisting the temptation to wait for grand opportunities and instead choosing the good available now. Dostoevsky's characters remind us that history is not only shaped by revolutions and empires, but by hidden acts of love. A coin given, a word spoken, a kindness offered. These can alter destinies as surely as grand decisions. Small acts are not small in their effect. They ripple outward, sustain the weary, and transform the giver as much as the receiver. In Dostoevsky's vision, the road to redemption and renewal is paved not with dreams of greatness, but with the steady discipline of small faithful acts. Lesson 22. Faith and doubt can coexist. Honestly. For many people, faith and doubt feel like opposites. To have faith, they assume, means to be free of questions, secure in certainty. To have doubt, by contrast, is to lack faith altogether. But Dostoevsky challenges this simplistic division. In his novels, faith and doubt are not enemies. They are companions. They coexist in the same soul, often in tension, sometimes in agony, but always with honesty. For Dostoevsky, the presence of doubt does not negate faith. Rather, it reveals the depth of the struggle for truth. Dostoevsky never trivializes doubt. He gives it some of his most brilliant and eloquent voices. Even Karamazov, in The Brothers Karamazov, raises one of the most searing arguments against faith, the existence of innocent suffering. Even insists that no future harmony, no justification, can make sense of children tortured and killed. His protest is powerful, not because it is easily answered, but because it is nearly unanswerable. By giving Ivan such a compelling voice, Dostoevsky shows his respect for doubt. He does not silence it with platitudes. He allows it full weight, recognizing that questions of suffering, justice, and evil cannot be brushed aside. Doubt, in his world, is part of honest faith. Dostoevsky distinguishes between intellectual arguments about God and lived faith. Ivan can argue brilliantly against belief, but his life remains restless, tormented, and fractured. Alyosha, by contrast, cannot match Ivan's reasoning, but he lives his faith through love, humility, and presence. The contrast illustrates Dostoevsky's conviction. Faith is not primarily about intellectual certainty. It is about lived trust, expressed through compassion and action. Doubt may remain, but it does not cancel faith if one continues to live faithfully. Dostoevsky portrays faith and doubt as coexisting honestly within individuals. Even believers wrestle with questions. Elder Zosima, though revered as a holy man, acknowledges mystery and uncertainty. His wisdom does not come from eliminating doubt, but from living faithfully despite it. This coexistence reflects the complexity of human life. Faith without doubt can become fanaticism, rigid, brittle, unable to handle challenge. Doubt without faith can become despair, restless, cynical, unable to love. The honest coexistence of both creates depth, humility, and resilience. One of Dostoevsky's warnings is that denying doubt leads to dishonesty. To pretend certainty when questions remain is to live a divided life. It creates hypocrisy, outward piety, masking inner turmoil. Such dishonesty corrodes integrity and makes faith fragile. By contrast, admitting doubt keeps faith honest. It acknowledges the limits of human understanding. It allows humility to temper conviction. Dostoevsky suggests that God desires honesty more than pretense. A doubting but sincere heart is closer to truth than a confident but dishonest one. Dostoevsky also portrays doubt as a form of compassion. Ivan's refusal to accept a world with innocent suffering, though it leads him to reject God, arises from a deep moral sensitivity. His doubt is not cynicism, but empathy. He cannot reconcile love for children with theological justifications of evil. This suggests that doubt is not always rebellion. Sometimes it is love refusing to be satisfied with easy answers. Faith that respects such doubt becomes deeper, more compassionate, more willing to face hard realities. In Dostoevsky's vision, faith ultimately transcends proof. Logic and evidence can point toward truth, but they cannot compel belief. Faith is an act of freedom, chosen in the midst of uncertainty. This is why faith and doubt can coexist. The decision to trust does not eliminate questions, but it moves forward despite them. Sonia exemplifies this in Crime and Punishment. She cannot explain suffering or defend faith with arguments. Yet she chooses to live by faith, reading scripture, loving sacrificially and forgiving radically. Her faith coexists with hardship and questions, but it shines all the brighter because it persists without certainty. For Dostoevsky, love bridges the gap between faith and doubt. Intellectual arguments may leave questions unresolved, but love reveals faith in action. Alasha does not try to refute Ivan's arguments. Instead, he embraces him. This embrace embodies faith as lived love, even when intellectual agreement is impossible. Love allows faith and doubt to coexist honestly. It refuses to reduce belief to abstract debate. It insists that whatever questions remain, the call to compassion remains unchanged. Perhaps the most honest way Dostoevsky describes faith is as struggle. It is not static certainty, but an ongoing wrestle with questions, suffering, and hope. This struggle is not a weakness, but a sign of vitality. A faith that wrestles is alive. A faith that refuses to wrestle is brittle. Characters who struggle, like Dmitri, Ivan, and Raskolnikov, are closer to truth than those who ignore the struggle. Their doubts reveal the seriousness with which they take life and morality. Dostoevsky suggests that faith without struggle is shallow. True faith grapples, questions, and persists. What do Dostoevsky's novels teach us about faith and doubt? That they can coexist honestly. That doubt, when admitted, deepens faith rather than destroys it. That faith is lived through love more than proved by logic. That honesty is more important than certainty. Practically, this means admitting our questions instead of hiding them. It means respecting the doubts of others, listening with compassion rather than judgment. It means continuing to live faithfully, loving, forgiving, serving, even when certainty wavers. Faith is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to live by trust despite it. For Dostoevsky, faith and doubt are not enemies, but companions in the human search for truth. Doubt keeps faith honest. Faith keeps doubt from despair. Together they form a tension that deepens humility, compassion, and love. To live with both is not weakness but courage. It is to walk forward without all answers, trusting that the struggle itself brings us closer to truth. In Dostoevsky's vision, honest coexistence of faith and doubt is not failure. It is the very essence of being human before God. Lesson 23. Justice needs mercy. Mercy needs justice. Human beings long for justice. We want wrongs to be punished, debts to be repaid, and order to be restored. At the same time, we long for mercy, for second chances, for forgiveness, for love that goes beyond deserts. Dostoevsky knew that these two longings often collide. Pure justice without mercy becomes cruel. Pure mercy without justice becomes careless. His novels insist on the hard truth. Justice needs mercy, and mercy needs justice. Only together can they heal rather than destroy. Dostoevsky respected the human cry for justice. He did not dismiss wrongdoing as trivial or excuse suffering as meaningless. His characters often demand accountability for crimes. In The Brothers Karamazov, the murder of Fyodor Karamazov cries out for resolution. Dmitri is accused and tried, The courts demand evidence, and society insists on punishment. Without justice, chaos would prevail. Similarly, in crime and punishment, Raskolnikov cannot escape the moral weight of his crime. His conscience and the law both demand accountability. Dostoevsky shows that to ignore justice is to deny the seriousness of human choices. Wrongdoing must be named, and consequences must be faced. Yet Dostoevsky also gives powerful voice to the cry for mercy. Punishment alone does not heal. The guilty need the possibility of redemption, and the wounded need the possibility of reconciliation. Sonia's forgiveness of Raskolnikov is one of the most moving examples. She does not deny his crime, but she refuses to let it define him forever. Her mercy keeps hope alive, showing him that he is more than his sin. Elder Zosima echoes this principle, teaching that each person is responsible for all. Mercy is not indulgence. It is solidarity. It refuses to reduce people to their worst actions. Dostoevsky insists that without mercy, justice becomes a cage with no key. When justice is pursued without mercy, it becomes cruelty. Punishment turns into vengeance. The guilty are crushed without hope of renewal. Dostoevsky saw this danger in the legalism of his own time and in the revolutionary zeal of radicals who demanded absolute retribution. In Demons, revolutionaries justify violence as justice against oppressors, but their justice lacks mercy, and so it becomes tyranny. Innocent people are sacrificed, and cruelty spreads. Dostoevsky warns that justice stripped of compassion dehumanizes both victim and executioner. It restores order only by destroying love. On the other hand, mercy without justice is equally destructive. To excuse wrongdoing without accountability dishonors victims and enables further harm. Dostoevsky does not allow his merciful characters to ignore justice. Sonia forgives Raskolnikov, but she insists he confess and accept punishment. Her mercy accompanies justice rather than replacing it. This balance prevents mercy from becoming sentimentality. Real mercy faces the truth of wrongdoing and still chooses love. It is not cheap grace, but costly compassion. Mercy without justice would trivialize guilt. Justice without mercy would suffocate hope. Together, they restore dignity to both victim and offender. Confession plays a central role in Dostoevsky's vision of justice and mercy. To confess is to submit to justice, to acknowledge wrongdoing honestly, but it is also to seek mercy, trusting that the truth will not mean total rejection. Confession creates the space where justice and mercy meet. Raskolnikov's confession embodies this dynamic. By admitting his crime, he accepts justice, yet in Sonia's forgiveness, he receives mercy. Both elements are necessary for his redemption. Without confession, justice is denied. Without mercy, confession leads only to despair. Together, they create healing. Dostoevsky also ties justice and mercy to responsibility. Justice holds people accountable for their actions. Mercy expands responsibility beyond the individual, reminding us that we are bound together. Elder Zosima's teaching that each person is responsible for all shows how mercy transforms justice from cold calculation into shared burden. This responsibility prevents justice from becoming impersonal. It is not about abstract punishment, but about restoring community. Mercy ensures that justice aims at healing rather than destruction. In Dostoevsky's Christian vision, justice and mercy find their ultimate union in divine love. God's justice does not ignore sin, but God's mercy does not abandon the sinner. Punishment exists, but redemption remains possible. This vision underlies his novel's persistent hope that even the guilty can change, and even the wounded can heal. This higher vision challenges human systems. Our courts and governments often err towards severity or leniency. Dostoevsky's reminder is that true justice is inseparable from mercy. To pursue one without the other is to betray both. For readers, Dostoevsky's lesson is not only theoretical. We experience the tension of justice and mercy in daily life. When wronged, we want offenders to face consequences, but we also know the longing for forgiveness when we ourselves fail. Holding both together requires humility. It demands that we resist vengeance while refusing indulgence. Practically,
This means naming wrongs honestly, pursuing accountability, and still choosing compassion. It means seeking restitution rather than revenge, restoration rather than destruction. It means believing that people can change, while still insisting they face responsibility for harm. What does Dostoevsky teach us about justice and mercy? That they cannot exist apart. Justice without mercy becomes cruelty. Mercy without justice becomes sentimentality. Together, they form the balance that makes redemption possible. For communities, this means building systems that punish wrongdoing, but also offer rehabilitation. For individuals, it means forgiving without excusing, holding accountable without dehumanizing. In Dostoevsky's world, this balance is not optional. It is the essence of love and truth. Dostoevsky's novels reveal the hard but necessary balance of justice and mercy. One without the other distorts humanity. Together, they restore it. Justice names wrongdoing and demands responsibility. Mercy refuses to let wrongdoing be the final word. In a world quick to condemn and slow to forgive, or quick to excuse and slow to confront, Dostoevsky's reminder is urgent. Justice needs mercy. Mercy needs justice. Only together can they heal the wounds of the world and open the door to redemption.
Lesson 24. Loneliness distorts. Relationship corrects. Loneliness, for Dostoevsky, is not simply the absence of company. It is a condition of the soul in which perspective collapses inward, isolated from others. The mind grows distorted, grievances inflate, fantasies replace reality, and guilt becomes unbearable. Relationship, by contrast, restores proportion. It interrupts illusions, shares burdens, and grounds the self in reality. In Dostoevsky's novels, loneliness leads to despair, while relationship opens the door to healing. Dostoevsky's most tormented characters are often those who withdraw into isolation. The underground man in Notes from Underground embodies this dynamic. He isolates himself deliberately, refusing intimacy or friendship. Alone with his thoughts, he becomes consumed by bitterness and spite. Every imagined insult festers. Every humiliation grows monstrous. His isolation turns his mind into a prison. Dostoevsky suggests that isolation magnifies distortion. Without external correction, the mind invents its own logic, often cruel and self-destructive. The underground man's misery is not caused by others, but by his refusal to enter relationship. Loneliness distorts because it leaves us alone with unchecked illusions. Guilt becomes unbearable in solitude. When guilt is shared, confessed, named, or forgiven, it loses some of its power. But in isolation, guilt multiplies. The conscience becomes a relentless accuser with no relief. Raskolnikov illustrates this in Crime and Punishment. After his crime, he withdraws from friends and family, hiding in secrecy, alone. His guilt grows into feverish paranoia. Every look feels accusatory, every word threatening. His isolation distorts reality until he can no longer distinguish suspicion from truth. Only when he confesses, breaking isolation, does guilt begin to lose its crushing weight. For Dostoevsky, confession is not only about truth, but about relationship. To confess is to re-enter the community, to allow another person to witness the truth of one's life. Relationship correct the distortions of lonely guilt. Another reason relationship matters is that others serve as mirrors. Alone, we cannot see ourselves clearly. Others reflect back our behavior, revealing blind spots. This mirror may be uncomfortable, but it saves us from self-deception. Sonia is Raskolnikov's mirror. Her compassion exposes his pride. Her humility reveals his arrogance. Her love uncovers his need for redemption. Without Sonia's presence, he might never have seen himself honestly. Dostoevsky shows that relationship provides the external perspective we cannot give ourselves. Dostoevsky also portrays relationship as the means of sharing suffering. Loneliness leaves people crushed under the full weight of pain. Relationship distributes that weight. In The House of the Dead, Dostoevsky recalls how convicts endured prison by telling stories, laughing together, or offering small kindnesses. The suffering did not vanish, but it became bearable when shared. This principle appears again in the brothers Karamazov. After Ilyusha's death, Ilyusha gathers the grieving schoolboys. Their shared mourning transforms despair into solidarity. Relationship corrects the distortion of loneliness by reminding each person they are not alone in grief. Why do people withdraw if loneliness is so destructive? Dostoevsky suggests it is often pride. The underground man isolates himself because he cannot bear humiliation. Raskolnikov withdraws because he refuses to admit weakness. Isolation appears safer than vulnerability, but Dostoevsky shows that this safety is an illusion. Withdrawal may protect pride, but it destroys peace. Relationship requires humility, admitting need, confessing fault, accepting love. Pride resists this, but only through humility can distortion be corrected. Relationships also correct by grounding us in reality. Alone, we live in imagination, fantasies of greatness, paranoia of betrayal, endless self-talk. In relationship, these fantasies collapse. Others puncture illusions simply by being themselves. This is why Dostoevsky treats community as essential. Monasteries, in the brothers Karamazov, families, and even friendships provide the friction of reality. They force individuals out of solipsism and into shared life. Reality is often messy, but it is healthier than the distortions of lonely fantasy. In Dostoevsky's world, redemption always requires relationship. No one saves themselves alone. Raskolnikov needs Sonia. Dmitri needs Alyosha. Even Ivan, tormented by doubt, needs his brother's embrace. Salvation is not solitary achievement, but communal restoration. This is why Elder Zosima insists that each person is responsible for all. Relationship is not optional, but essential to morality and redemption. To love is to live in reality. To withdraw is to live in distortion. Dostoevsky's insight resonates with modern life, where loneliness has become widespread. Many live surrounded by people, yet remain isolated, cut off by pride, shame, or fear. Dostoevsky's warning is timely. Isolation distorts. Without honest relationships, people spiral into anxiety, resentment, and despair. His remedy is equally timely. Seek community, however imperfect. Share burdens, confess honestly, allow others to serve as mirrors. Relationships are messy, but they correct distortion. What does Dostoevsky teach us about loneliness and relationship? That loneliness is not neutral, but destructive, that it magnifies guilt, nurtures illusion, and breeds despair. That relationships, though difficult, correct distortion by offering mirrors, sharing burdens, and grounding us in reality. Practically, this means resisting the temptation to withdraw when ashamed or wounded. It means cultivating friendships where honesty is possible. It means practicing confession, forgiveness, and solidarity. Your relationship is not only comfort, it is salvation from distortion. For Dostoevsky, loneliness distorts, but relationship corrects. The underground man proves the danger of isolation. Sonia and Alyosha prove the power of relationship. We are not meant to live alone. We are meant to live in truth with others, even when it humbles us. To withdraw is to spiral into distortion. To connect is to rediscover reality. In Dostoevsky's vision, redemption is never solitary. It is always relational. And in this, he reminds us of a profound truth. We save each other, or not at all. Lesson 25. Hope is a moral choice for Dostoevsky. Hope is not mere optimism or a cheerful temperament. It is not the naive belief that things will work out easily. Hope, in his vision, is a moral choice, a deliberate decision to remain faithful to the good, even when circumstances offer no guarantee of success. Hope is chosen, often in darkness, as an act of courage. It resists despair, which Dostoevsky saw as one of the greatest temptations of the human soul. His novels, filled with suffering and cruelty, could easily collapse into hopelessness. Yet again and again, hope emerges, not as shallow positivity, but as a fierce moral stance. Characters who choose hope open the way to redemption. Those who surrender to despair sink into ruin. Dostoevsky portrays despair as seductive. It whispers that nothing can change, that suffering is meaningless, that failure is final. For characters crushed by guilt or grief, despair seems more honest than hope. Spiridonov, in Crime and Punishment, embodies this temptation. Haunted by his corruption and unable to imagine redemption, he chooses suicide. His despair appears logical. His past is stained, his conscience heavy, yet his choice reveals despair's lie, that the future is sealed by rejecting hope. He rejects the possibility of change. Despair, Dostoevsky warns, is not realism but surrender. It forecloses possibilities before they can ripen. It is a refusal of freedom, a decision to give up the struggle. Hope, by contrast, is often chosen in the absence of evidence. It does not deny suffering, but endures it with trust that meaning can emerge. Sonia, in Crime and Punishment, exemplifies this hope. Her life is marked by poverty and humiliation, yet she refuses despair. She continues to love, forgive, and serve. Her hope is not based on circumstances, but on faith in goodness and redemption. Her choice of hope does not guarantee comfort, but it transforms her presence. She becomes a beacon for Raskolnikov, showing him that even in exile, life can be renewed. Dostoevsky suggests that such hope is not naive, but heroic. Because hope is chosen against despair, it requires courage. It means facing reality honestly, acknowledging suffering, and still refusing to declare it final. This courage often costs dearly. Dmitry Karamazov, wrongly convicted, chooses to accept his punishment with hope. He believes that through suffering, he can be purified. His choice prevents bitterness from consuming him. Hope here is not about escaping injustice, but about transforming it into meaning. It is moral courage in the face of despair. Dostoevsky also ties hope to responsibility. To hope is not only to endure personally, but to act for others. Elder Zasenia teaches that each person is responsible for all. Hope motivates action, comforting the grieving, forgiving the guilty, serving the poor. Without hope, such responsibility feels pointless. With hope, even small acts become meaningful. Alyosha demonstrates this with the schoolboys after Alyosha's death. He does not deny their grief, but encourages them to remember their friend with love. His words inspire them to live with loyalty and kindness. Alyosha's hope becomes their hope. In Dostoevsky's vision, hope is contagious, spreading responsibility and love. Some critics might accuse Dostoevsky of sentimentality, but his hope is anything but shallow. It is forged in suffering, prison, and despair. He knew hopelessness intimately. That is why his hope carries weight. It is chosen in full awareness of life's darkness. His own survival after prison illustrates this realism. Sentenced to death and reprieved at the last moment, he endured years of Siberian exile. Yet out of this crucible, he emerged with deeper faith and sharper compassion. Hope for him was not wishful thinking, but survival, a moral choice to continue believing in human dignity despite brutality. Ultimately, Dostoevsky links hope to redemption. To hope is to believe that no person, no situation, is beyond renewal. This belief sustains his characters and gives readers strength. Without hope, redemption would be impossible. With hope, even the worst guilt can be transformed. Raskolnikov's confession, Dmitry's acceptance of suffering, Alyosha's compassion, all are grounded in hope. They refuse to let despair dictate the future. They choose to believe that goodness, though fragile, remains stronger than evil. At its deepest, Dostoevsky's hope is rooted in faith. He believed that Christ's resurrection revealed the ultimate victory of life over death, love over despair. Human hope, however fragile, participates in this divine reality. It is not optimism, but trust in a transcendent promise. Even Ivan Karamazov, tormented by doubt, reveals the hunger for such hope. His rebellion against God is fueled by outrage at suffering, yet beneath it lies longing for a world where suffering is redeemed. Dostoevsky respects the doubt, but insists that without hope, the human heart cannot live. What does Dostoevsky teach us about hope? That it is not a mood but a choice. That despair, though tempting, is a lie that forecloses possibilities. That hope requires courage, responsibility, and humility. That it sustains love, redemption, and faith. Practically, this means choosing hope daily, refusing cynicism, acting with compassion, and believing that change remains possible. It means encouraging others, sharing burdens, and trusting that even in suffering, meaning can emerge. Hope may not remove darkness, but it keeps the story open. For Dostoevsky, hope is a moral choice. It is not blind optimism, but faithful defiance against despair. It is the decision to love, forgive, and endure when circumstances scream otherwise. It is the belief that redemption remains possible, that suffering can be transformed, that life is worth living even in its darkest hours. In a world often tempted by cynicism, Dostoevsky's message is radical. Hope is not weakness, but strength. It frees the soul from despair, sustains communities, and opens the future. And because it is a choice, it is always available. Whatever our failures, whatever our suffering, hope remains possible. And that brings us to the end of 25. Life Lessons from Fyodor Dostoevsky. We've journeyed through freedom and guilt, suffering and love, pride and humility, despair and redemption. These are not just lessons from 19th century Russia. They are mirrors of our lives today. Dostoevsky forces us to see that the battles of his characters are the same battles we face. The struggle between pride and humility, cruelty and compassion, despair and hope. But remember, his greatest message is this: change is always possible. No matter how far someone falls, no matter how heavy the guilt, no matter how deep the suffering, redemption remains open to us, if we choose. So here's the wake-up call. Don't let these lessons remain words on a page. Live them. Practice the small acts of love. Resist the pride that isolates. Confess where you've deceived yourself. And above all, choose hope, because hope is a moral decision we can make every day. Thank you for walking through these 25 chapters with me. If even one of these lessons stirred something in you, carry it forward, and I'd love to hear from you. Which of Dostoevsky's lessons hit you hardest? Which one feels most urgent for your life right now? Leave your answer in the comments. I'll be reading every one. And remember, Dostoevsky didn't just write about his characters. He wrote about us. The question now is, how will you live differently after hearing his lessons?